I work my fingers to the bone keeping this household running, yet my mother-in-law still complains I'm too extravagant with money. The moment I spend a single penny, she starts nagging in my ear. Why bother buying groceries? Just pick up whatever's left at the market. If the medicine runs out, so be it. Building up your immune system is the real cure when the electrical system acts up. Fixing it yourself saves so much money. Why waste cash on something you can handle? In my past life, I believed some expenses were just unavoidable, but later, my husband accused me of being irresponsible with money, calling me wasteful. After our son grew up, seeing the neighbors buy cars and houses for their kids, he also resented me for not saving enough. I fell ill and was hospitalized, but they refused to cover my medical expenses, leaving me to die from my illness. They said I deserved it. If only I had been more frugal in daily life, I would have had the money for treatment now. Given a second chance at life, I started saving money as they had demanded, but then they regretted it. As I looked at the pieces of meat laid out before me, I realized I had been reborn. I was still dazed when the butcher's voice snapped me out of it. Sis, buying meat, how much do you need? Just slaughtered this morning, fresh as can be. I suddenly came to my senses. This was the very same meat stall I used to visit in my past life. Back in my previous life, every time I brought meat home, my mother-in-law Grace would complain, "Why did you buy so much meat? Don't you know how to save money? All you do is spend money. Why bother buying vegetables when you could just pick some leftovers from the market? It's a curse that my son ended up with a wasteful wife like you." Eventually, these accusations became the norm. Every time I spend money, no matter what I buy, my mother-in-law complains. At first, both my husband and son were on my side. As time went on, even my husband started thinking I'm wasteful with money. If I'm given 1,000, I'll spend 1,000. I can't seem to save a single penny. After my son grew up, he saw our next-door neighbors buying their child both a car and a house. His attitude toward me turned into one of disdain. He blames me entirely for our family's inability to save any money. If only I had listened to my mother-in-law. How could our family possibly be without money? Later, when I fell ill and was hospitalized, I begged them to save me, but they refused to cover the medical expenses, leaving me to die from my illness. They even said I deserved it, that if I had been more frugal in daily life, I would have had the money for treatment now. Yet after my death, my husband took out $2 million for our son's wedding, so it turned out the family did have money. It's just that I had none in my hands, given a second chance at life. I shook my head at the butcher as my mother-in-law's harsh words echoed in my mind. "No, I won't be buying any meat today." The butcher looked surprised. "Not buying? This batch just arrived. Last time you mentioned your son's birthday and asked me to set aside £2 for you. Sorry, I don't need it this time." When I got home, my husband stared at the cabbage in my hand, completely stunned. It took him a moment to snap out of it. "Why didn't you buy any meat?" he asked, puzzled. "Isn't our son's birthday tomorrow?" Suppressing my anger, I replied with a strained smile. "Meat is expensive. Weren't you the one always telling me to be more frugal? You give me 1,000 and I spend 1,000. Do you have any concept of saving?" I paused, deliberately bringing up his favorite line from our past life. "And you always said the neighbor's wife manages on just 500 a month, while I get thousands and still complain it's not enough. Now that I'm trying to be frugal, why is that wrong too?" But her husband furrowed his brow. Glaring intently at the cabbage, he opened his mouth to argue but couldn't find the words. He had indeed said those things. Every time my mother-in-law complained about my spending, he would either chime in or stay silent. After it happened so many times, even he started thinking I was bad with money. But when I actually stopped buying anything, he'd get all uncomfortable about it. "But you can't just have cabbage for your birthday." I looked up and stared straight at him. Last time I celebrated Henry's birthday, Mom wouldn't stop going on about it for a whole year. She was complaining to me this morning, telling me not to buy any meat. "Well, you didn't object this morning either, did you?" Just as the husband was about to defend himself, his mother-in-law happened to walk back in through the door. In her hand, she was carrying some vegetable leaves she had picked up from the market. She blurted out the words out of habit the moment she stepped inside. Before even seeing what I was holding, "You're wasting money again. Why buy vegetables? Look how much I've gathered for free. You never listened to me, and you still had to go and buy meat. What's a birthday without meat? Back in our day, we were grateful to have any food at all. We never dreamed of having meat with every meal." Her husband looked thoroughly embarrassed by his mother's remarks. "Mom, that's enough." My mother-in-law shot her son a glare. "You're just too soft-hearted. Do we have money trees growing in our backyard to fund her extravagant spending? Henry's still so young. If he gets used to this lavish lifestyle now, what will become of him when he grows up? Who says you need meat for a birthday celebration? Vegetables are perfectly fine." Seeing his mother's remark, my husband's face darkened even more, and he instinctively glanced at me. I chimed in with a smile. "You're right, honey. You really should know better, since Mom put it that way." We'll just skip it. My reaction took my mother-in-law by surprise. She paused for a moment, then turned to look at me. When she saw I was only holding cabbage, her eyes held a hint of confusion. You didn't buy any meat, I scoffed inwardly, but kept my expression calm, even adding a touch of grievance. Mom, didn't you tell me this morning before you left not to buy any meat? I thought you were right, so I didn't buy any meat. Just these few cheap cabbages. My mother-in-law stared at me in disbelief. But tomorrow is Henry's birthday. I feigned innocence. That's right. Didn't you just say so yourself? Children shouldn't be spoiled with extravagant things. After a long pause, my mother-in-law finally managed to say, I was just worried you'd spend money recklessly. Don't worry, Mom. I won't be so careless with money from now on. You're absolutely right. We should just eat the vegetables you've foraged from now on. I only wish I'd realized this sooner. I actually bought a cabbage today that can't be returned. What a waste. I kept talking while watching my mother-in-law's reaction closely. Her face grew visibly pale, a panicked expression spreading across her features. After all, she just wanted me to take the blame for being wasteful. She never actually intended to shortchange her precious grandson. She'd been counting on my devotion to the child, knowing I'd buy whatever was necessary. By just paying lip service, she could still come off as virtuous, seeing that I truly wasn't going to make the purchase. My mother-in-law seemed to feel the need to remind me, muttering under her breath, but tomorrow is Henry's birthday, his one special day of the year. He's been looking forward to it for ages, and he said he's bringing friends over. My husband immediately chimed in, that's right, our son is bringing friends home tomorrow. We'll need to prepare at least 6 different dishes. Then, they both looked at me expectantly, thinking I'd offer to buy meat for the child's sake. I pretended not to understand and turned to my mother-in-law, saying, you're right, you should gather more vegetables tomorrow, or there won't be enough to eat. Should I set an alarm for you? That way you can get up early and check more markets for discarded produce. My mother-in-law's face froze, her lips parted, but no words came out for the longest time. My husband's expression turned grim. Without another word to either of them, I turned and went back to the bedroom. During dinner, my husband and mother-in-law still held on to hope and repeatedly brought up our son's birthday to me. What would Henry like to eat for his birthday tomorrow? Our son looked up and exclaimed excitedly, braised pork belly. My husband turned to look at me, but seeing me focused on my meal, he could only shoot a glare at his mother. My mother-in-law immediately chimed in, braised pork belly sounds perfect. This morning at the market, I spotted a butcher's stall. The pig was freshly slaughtered today. It's incredibly tender. If we braise it, I bet our Henry could easily devour 2 big bowls. My husband picked up where his mother left off. Seems like meat prices have dropped lately. A kilogram only costs a few dozen yuan. A birthday calls for some meat, doesn't it? Remember Henry's birthday 2 years ago? We had fish, pork, and ribs. I watched them playing off each other, yet neither would come out and say it directly. They just didn't want to be the ones footing the bill, hoping I'd volunteer to buy the meat instead. At least I can still complain to the neighbors about how bad I am with money, always spending recklessly. With that thought, I looked up and said with a smile, yeah, you're right, my mother-in-law wouldn't stop complaining for a whole year about that last feast I made. This time I've learned my lesson. I won't buy a single thing more than necessary. The moment I said it, the air at the dinner table instantly froze over. My husband's chopsticks halted midair, the cabbage leaf he was holding dropping back into his bowl. He frowned at me. My mother-in-law's face turned even more sour. Stammering for a long moment before managing, that's not. I set down my bowl with an overly understanding smile. I'm done eating. Granny, don't forget to gather more vegetables tomorrow. The two of them fell silent, just focusing on shoveling rice into their mouths, but I could tell they were clinging to false hope. They probably thought I was just upset in the heat of the moment, and that when our son's birthday actually came around, I'd secretly buy meat anyway to keep him from feeling deprived. After all, that's exactly how I handled things in my past life. Early the next morning, as soon as day broke, my mother-in-law started deliberately pacing around the living room. Oh dear, the market will be packed today. If we're late to the butcher's stall, all the fresh meat will be gone. My husband nudged me when he heard the noise. I impatiently pushed his hand away, rolled over, and went back to sleep. My work schedule starts a bit later than my husband's. Before leaving, my husband reminded me, Henry is bringing friends over for lunch. You'll have to figure something out. I grunted in response and went back to eating my breakfast. When I got home from work, my mother-in-law was sitting in the living room. As I walked in, her eyes immediately went to my hands. Seeing I hadn't bought anything, she instantly grew tense. Didn't you stop by the butcher's on your way home? What would I need from the butcher's stall? I feigned confusion. The old woman clutched at her clothes, hemming and hawing for what felt like ages. Henry will be back with his friends soon. Yes, I know. I'll start cooking the vegetables you gathered right away. With that, I turned and went into the kitchen. The vegetable leaves my mother-in-law had gathered this morning were no longer fresh. After picking through them, I barely managed to put together an edible plate. I added the leftover cabbage from yesterday and the potatoes we hadn't finished. In the end, I prepared 3 dishes, a plate of stir-fried greens, a plate of shredded potatoes, and a plate of stir-fried cabbage. I only used a tiny amount of oil and salt, since we have to be frugal. When my mother-in-law saw the 3 dishes I'd made, her face turned as pale as the vegetables. She followed behind me and asked, "This small portion won't be enough to feed everyone, will it?" I smiled at her and said, "Don't worry, drink plenty of water, and you'll feel full eventually." Just as the dishes were laid out on the table, the sound of a key turning in the lock came from the door. My husband was back with our son and his friend. The moment he stepped inside, our son eagerly called out, "Mom, is the red braised pork ready? What about the cake? Is it fruit or chocolate?" The son rushed to the dining table and quickly scanned the spread, but he froze in his tracks when he saw the 3 bland, watery vegetable dishes on the table. His 2 friends were also stunned. One of the boys in a blue jacket whispered, "Henry, why is it all vegetables?" The other boy wearing a cap was even more blunt. Scratching his head, he said, "My mom says birthdays are for cake and good food. Why is your family just having this?" Henry's face instantly flushed red as he awkwardly replied, "There's definitely more than this. Last time my mom made me all kinds of delicious food. Just wait. There's definitely more coming." My husband, noticing the few dishes on the table, quickly turned to me and asked, "Honey, why are there only 3 dishes?" I walked over and pointed at the dishes on the table. I nodded. "Yeah, just these 3. We only had enough ingredients at home to make 3 dishes. I turned to my son and saw his face full of hurt, looking at me in disbelief. In my previous life, I always bought him the best because I was afraid he might suffer on his birthday. I heard his friends were coming over. I made sure to prepare a whole spread of delicious food. Later, when my mother-in-law complained about me, he also said to me, "Mom, you brought this on yourself. I never asked for fancy meals. We can just eat cabbage from now on to keep Grandma from getting upset." Eventually, he was the first to give up on me. He took me home from the hospital and deprived me of food and water, leaving me to die from illness. So in this lifetime, seeing his tearful expression, I crouched beside him. "Henry, Grandma said we need to be frugal and avoid luxury. If she sees you eating meat, Grandma will get upset again. Didn't you also say Mom should listen to Grandma? Come on, let's eat." I ushered everyone to the table. My husband quickly stepped in to smooth things over. "That's right, let's eat first. Even vegetarian dishes can be delicious." My son's eyes swept over the 3 dishes on the table, but in the end, he couldn't hold back and started crying. The boy in the blue jacket said to my son, "We're not eating anymore. We're going home." The other boy nodded in agreement. "Yeah, at least we have meat with every meal at my house. If you'd told me there were only 3 dishes, I wouldn't have come." With the 2 kids going back and forth like that, my son started crying even harder. The husband had no choice but to see them out, and when he returned, his face was as dark as thunder. The grandmother, who had been anxiously pacing nearby, couldn't stand it any longer as Henry's crying grew more intense. She stepped forward to take his hand, her voice tinged with appeasement. There, Henry, don't cry." The boy jerked his hand away from hers. "This is all your fault. My friends are gone because of you. They're all laughing at me. Grandma, you're always like this, never letting Mom buy anything. Now on my birthday, there's not even a piece of meat. I hate you." When my husband came home and saw our son crying and making a scene, then looked at his mother standing there helplessly, he immediately wanted to blame me. "Anna, did you really have to do this? What did I do wrong?" I put on an innocent face. "It's our child's birthday. And you didn't even buy any meat." My mother-in-law glared at me angrily. "Exactly. How could you be so heartless? How could you let our child suffer like this?" Hearing their words, I feigned an angry expression. "What do you mean I'm heartless? If I buy anything, you call me wasteful and tell me to save money. Now that I'm cutting back like you asked, you're still not happy. What exactly do you want from me?" My mother-in-law was left speechless by my words. The husband finally let out a sigh and softened his tone. All right, let's just eat. Saving money is fine too. It's not the end of the world if we skip meat." Their son was forcibly pulled into the chair by his father and made to eat the unpalatable greens. Later, the whole incident spread around the school. My son was being ostracized in class. His classmates would crowd around him laughing, some calling him Cabbage Boy, while others would taunt him by asking if his family was too poor to afford meat. Because of this, my son started resenting his grandmother, throwing tantrums at home and demanding that things go back to the way they were, but his protests were in vain. From that day on, our dinner table became a veritable vegetable feast. What we ate entirely depended on what his grandmother managed to scavenge each day. It's always either yellowing cabbage leaves or wilted radishes. I used to think about my son's growth needs. I'd always pick the best fruits, milk, and snacks to bring home. Now all that's gone too, just 2 weeks in, and my husband was already cracking under the pressure. "Honey, our son's only in elementary school. Eating nothing but cabbage every day isn't giving him the nutrients he needs." I looked at him, puzzled. This is all the food Mom manages to salvage each day. If we want to save money, we have to stick to vegetables. You give me $6,000 a month, and the mortgage alone takes $4,000 of it, after deducting utilities, phone bills, and other miscellaneous expenses from the remaining $2,000, we're left with just about $1,000. My husband was taken aback, not expecting me to go through the finances with him, but buying meat doesn't cost that much. He frowned in thought, then suddenly said, "And don't you have your own salary too?" I spread my hands as if I'd just heard the most ridiculous thing. My salary, last month's paycheck went straight to my mother-in-law's medicine, her hospital visit, and our child's tutoring fees. Besides, we need to save something. How are we supposed to help our son buy a home or car in the future? My husband stared at me intently. I met his gaze calmly, and he finally said with resignation, "From now on, I'll give you an extra $500 a month. Use it as you see fit. Just stop eating cabbage every single day." I scoffed inwardly. 500 for 4 people, that's less than $5 a day. No need to get me one. I've been working late lately. You go ahead and buy it. Her husband nodded. He'd always thought meals couldn't possibly cost that much. 500 is more than enough. On the very first day, he ended up spending over $100. $500 didn't even last him a week. By the end of the month, he'd spent twice as much as I used to managing the household, over $3,000. He stared at the bill in pain, his eyes full of shock. How did it get this high? I only bought meat a few times, picked up some fruit, and ate out occasionally. How did I end up spending over $3,000? I sat beside him, mimicking his demeanor from his previous life. You really know how to burn through money. What a reckless spender. Charles, tell me the truth, have you been stashing money away? There's no way basic expenses like food and drinks could cost this much. He listened to my accusations, completely lost for words in his defense. My mother-in-law also looked at her husband with reproach in her eyes. I finally stood up and pointed at the bill. You've already overspent this month. Next month, you'll have to stick to 500. With that, I turned and went into the bedroom, leaving my husband and his mother sitting in awkward silence in the living room. In the end, it was only because my mother-in-law gave him money that we could barely manage the 500 yuan budget. The days dragged on. The medicine I bought for my mother-in-law didn't last long before she finished it. She used to say it was fine if the medicine ran out, and that staying healthy was what really mattered. But when she realized I wasn't going to buy more, she got anxious and started hinting that she'd run out of medicine at home. She walked back and forth across the living room 3 times, holding the empty medicine box. Every time she walked past, she'd let out a heavy sigh. Seeing I remained unmoved, she finally couldn't help herself and rushed up to me. "Lately, I've been feeling a bit lightheaded." Only then did I look up, responding with genuine concern. "Mom, have you not been sleeping well at night? Weren't you just telling me the other day that walking 2 laps around the neighborhood every morning is better than any medicine? How about I have Charles walk with you a bit longer tomorrow?" My mother-in-law was left speechless. She picked up her medicine box and retreated to the bedroom. 2 months later, after stopping her medication, she was promptly admitted to the hospital. When I arrived at the hospital, my mother-in-law was insisting on going home. Seeing me approach, she shot Charles a look. "Oh, you're here, dear." I kept saying I don't need to be hospitalized. Staying in this big hospital for a day must cost a fortune. Look at you, insisting on spending this money. She spoke while glancing in my direction, her eyes holding a glimmer of expectation, hoping I'd pick up the conversation. Just like in our past life when I'd rush to attend to her every time she felt unwell, I nodded obediently. "You're right, Mom. How about we check you out of the hospital today and I'll take you to a local clinic?" The moment I said this, my mother-in-law's face registered pure shock, as if unable to believe I would actually say such a thing. After all, in the past I would have insisted she be hospitalized. I'd have hired a private nurse for her and used the best medications available. "You mean go to a clinic? But the doctor just said I need proper rest and recovery." I looked puzzled. "Mom, are you saying you want to be hospitalized?" My mother-in-law immediately shook her head. "How could that be? I wouldn't waste money like that. Doctors at big hospitals are all frauds. There's nothing wrong with me. They just want to scam me out of my money." Hearing my mother-in-law say the same things as in my past life, I nodded. "Right, so should we check out now?" Charles glanced at his mother, then at me, hesitating as he said, "Mom, maybe we should get a proper checkup, just in case something's wrong. The doctor did say you need to stay for observation for a few days." "What nonsense are you talking? If the doctor didn't say that, how else would they get you to spend money?" His mother cut him off, raising her voice even louder. "Do you have any idea how much a hospital stay costs?" She shifted closer to me as she spoke. "Right, daughter-in-law." I knew exactly what was going on. I could tell she was waiting for me to suggest treatment, just to save face. I pretended not to notice her look and said flatly, "You're right, Mom, no point wasting money." Can't small clinics treat illnesses too? If all else fails, I'll exercise every day from now on, Mom. I'm sure I'll get better eventually. My mother-in-law hadn't expected me to agree with her, but she had no choice but to press on. Exactly, small clinics are so much better, affordable and reliable. Let's go right now. But even as she said this, she didn't move. Instead, she deliberately coughed a couple of times. I remained silent, which made Charles panic. He quickly held her arm and said, Mom, if you're feeling dizzy, let's not move you. I'll go pay the bill right now. Don't you dare pay. My mother-in-law grabbed his arm, her tone turning stern again, though her eyes kept darting in my direction. I'm fine. What's the big deal? Saving money is what matters. Her words were resolute, but her body dragged its feet. She didn't take a single step for the longest time. I didn't give her a chance to change her mind. Immediately taking Charles and escorting my mother-in-law to the small clinic, we just grabbed a bottle of medicine and headed home. After returning home, every time my mother-in-law took her medicine, she would sigh in front of me. In my previous life, I bought her imported medicine, but she always complained about the cost. In this life, however, after only taking painkillers for a few days, she started feeling unwell all over. Her condition kept worsening, and her mental state began to deteriorate. I deliberately spread word of her frugal habits, and everyone praised her for it. She became even more fixated on saving money. When our air conditioner broke down later, she couldn't bear to have it repaired, let alone replaced. The mere mention of replacing the AC would send her into hysterics. My mother-in-law kept discouraging my husband from buying a new AC while dropping hints to me. Anna, it's really quite hot today, isn't it? I pretended not to hear her. She glanced at me, sighed again, and raised her voice slightly. Henry has always been sensitive to the heat, even as a child. I kept up the act of not hearing. Last time around, after I replaced the air conditioner, she went around telling everyone I was wasteful with money. After enduring a week of such days, Charles finally reached his breaking point. That day he came home from work with an installation technician in tow. He had secretly contacted the technician and purchased a new air conditioner. The technician quickly installed the unit, and the moment Charles flipped the switch, a cool breeze swept through the room, making him sigh with relief. But before he could revel in his joy for long, his mother-in-law returned, trailed by a few of her friends. She paused in surprise, feeling the long-missed coolness in the house. Turning to see the new air conditioner on the wall, her eyes lit up. Aunt May spoke up first. Grace, you've got a new air conditioner. That must have cost a pretty penny, didn't it? Upon hearing this, mother-in-law's face immediately showed her displeasure. She took Aunt May's hand, her voice filled with grievance. All thanks to that spendthrift in my family. He just had to buy such expensive things, with no sense of thrift at all. Back in our day, we didn't have air conditioning, but we managed just fine, didn't we? Some people just don't know how to live within their means. The moment they have a little money, they get restless and splurge on a several thousand yuan air conditioner without a second thought. Aunt May chimed in right away. Exactly, she's so irresponsible. You scrimp and save every day, even picking up discarded vegetable leaves to cook with, while she spends money so recklessly. I'd be furious too if I were you. You can say that again. Grandma Wang nodded along, shooting me a disapproving look. They all started chiming in, taking turns to criticize me. My mother-in-law stood in the middle, a faint smile playing on her lips. She saw the air conditioning technician leaving and thought I couldn't hold back, so she deliberately brought friends over to gang up on me and show off her contributions. Just then, Charles came out of the bedroom and greeted the guests with a smile, but when he saw his mother-in-law was also there, he immediately tensed up, unaware of the situation. My mother-in-law tugged her friend's arm even more proudly. My son is so kind-hearted. He never stops his wife from spending money. She just went ahead and bought an air conditioner that cost thousands. Charles stood frozen in place, his palms growing clammy with sweat. He instinctively glanced in my direction, his eyes filled with panic. My eyes welled up as I walked up to Charles, my voice trembling with emotion. Charles, how could you be so reckless with our money? The moment those words were spoken, the living room fell into complete silence. The smile froze on my mother-in-law's face. As if she hadn't heard clearly, she instinctively asked, "What did you say, Mom?" Charles installed the air conditioner behind our backs. My mother-in-law gasped in shock. "Son, she's telling the truth." Charles nodded with a dejected look. "How are we supposed to survive this heat without an AC? Why can't we just get a new one?" Tears welled up in my eyes as I raised my voice, making sure everyone in the room could hear me clearly. "I've been asking to replace the air conditioner for ages, but Mom always refused. She said I was being wasteful. You were the one who said we need to be careful with money, and now you're making purchases without even discussing it with me or your mother." My mother-in-law's friends looked at us with astonishment in their eyes. Charles's face flushed instantly as he quickly pulled me aside. "Keep your voice down. It's not like I had a choice. Since when does having no choice justify reckless spending?" I shook off his hand and said loudly on purpose, "You always complained I was wasteful when I bought a piece of meat, but you didn't hesitate at all when it was your turn to buy." Seeing this, my mother-in-law quickly tried to smooth things over. "Son, you really should have discussed this with us first. but he did it for the family's sake. Is it okay to be wasteful just because it's for the family? I looked at my mother-in-law, my voice full of hurt. I get accused of being wasteful every time I buy anything, so why aren't you stopping Charles from spending like this? So when I spend money it's wasteful, but when he does it it's perfectly fine. The neighbors immediately started whispering among themselves after hearing what I said. Charles stood in the crowd, his face turning red and pale, wanting to explain but not knowing where to start. My mother-in-law used to constantly complain to the neighbors about my poor financial management and reckless spending. She was just complaining about me buying an air conditioner, but now that her son bought one, she doesn't call it wasteful. Now with all this commotion I've caused, the neighbors are looking at the two of them with strange expressions. Under the weight of everyone's stares, the mother-in-law broke down and dragged Charles to return the air conditioner. Left with no choice, Charles ended up returning the brand new air conditioner. Without the air conditioner, Charles couldn't sleep at all. One night, the heat became unbearable. He took several cold showers to cool off, only to come down with a high fever the next day. 2 weeks into this routine, the power suddenly went out at home. My husband got up to check the circuit breaker. After flipping the switch a couple times with no response, he frowned and said, "Must be a short circuit. We'll need to call an electrician." No need for an electrician. My mother-in-law immediately rose from the sofa, her voice twice as loud as usual. "It's just some wiring, isn't it? We can fix it ourselves. Calling an electrician would cost at least $50. Such a waste of money." She said the exact same thing in our previous life, last time around. When we had electrical issues at home and I wanted to call an electrician, she said the very same thing, worried something might go wrong. I dragged Charles along to hire an electrician. This time around, I chimed in beside my mother-in-law. "Yeah, why don't you just fix it yourself? It'll save money too. No point wasting cash." Charles didn't want to argue with his mother, so he reluctantly dug out the leftover wires and tools. I sat on the couch watching them without saying a word. Urged by his mother-in-law, Charles walked over with his tools, only to collapse to the ground convulsing the next second. He was still clutching the improperly connected wires in his hand. The mother-in-law's face turned pale with fright, and she instinctively rushed over to pull him up. But the moment her hand touched Charles's arm, the electric current instantly surged through her body. She too let out a piercing scream as she collapsed, her body trembling uncontrollably, terrified. Henry rushed over in tears. I saw the electrocuted individuals, pulled out my phone, and dialed for an ambulance. By the time the doctors arrived, Charles and the elderly woman had already stopped moving. Later, all three were taken to the hospital. My mother-in-law passed away before we could get her to the hospital due to her poor health. When I rushed to the hospital, my husband and son were lying in hospital beds. Charles looked at me with a hoarse voice and said, "Anna, why didn't you stop me?" My son was also looking at me. "Mom, why are you acting different? You're supposed to buy me treats and stand up for me when I get bullied." Hearing this, I stared at the father and son who were still alive. They had been reborn too, acting different. I deliberately slowed my speech and leaned closer to the pair. "Last lifetime you complained I didn't save money. Now that I'm being frugal, why aren't you happy? That's different." Charles suddenly became agitated, trying to reach for me but lacking even the strength to lift his arm. I sneered and said coolly, "In my past life, when I was sick, you two said it yourselves. If we had been more frugal in our daily lives, we would have the money for treatment now. So I'm following your advice. Don't treat me. We must be frugal." Charles's face instantly drained of color as he panicked and said, "Honey, you can't do this. Why shouldn't I? It's not like I'm killing you. You'll just die from lack of medical treatment, same way I went in my past life." Our son grew frightened and pleaded with a trembling voice, "Mom, I was young and foolish back then. I know I was wrong. Please, won't you help me? I'm your son." I patted his head. Seeing this, his eyes lit up, thinking I'd softened, but the next moment, I gently withdrew my hand and said calmly, "Well, I might have saved you if you hadn't been reborn, but you did get reborn, if you had any sense. You'd accept your death quietly, and if you don't, then you deserve to die even more." After saying that, I stood up and took both of them home. Just like my past self, they suffered and died because they couldn't afford medical treatment. After their passing, I inherited the entire estate. Staring at the $1 million balance in my account, I couldn't help but laugh. Turns out my husband had been stashing away secret savings all along, and my mother-in-law had hundreds of thousands to her name. All this time she'd been preaching frugality, while my husband accused me of reckless spending, yet they hoarded all that money without spending a single penny on the family. I was the only one living on what they called household allowance. Every cent I had went toward feeding and providing for the whole family. I was clearly the one scrimping and saving to keep this household running. In the end, I still got blamed and ended up with a reputation for squandering the family fortune. Well, now it's all fine and dandy. They scrimped and saved to the very end, and now the whole family's kicked the bucket, leaving all the savings to me. Story 2, the zombie apocalypse begins in 1 week, and I've been reborn. In my past life, my boyfriend and best friend betrayed me, leaving me to die by zombie bites. They even skinned my 2 cats alive. This time, I won't be love-struck and naive. I'll make them pay for this, spend every penny stockpiling supplies, then teach those scumbags a lesson. In the end, I'll retreat into my house with my 2 cats and live in complete isolation. I bolted upright, only to realize I was lying in bed all alone. What's going on? Didn't Kai just push me into that zombie horde? Ding dong. A vibration came from under the pillow. I picked it up and saw a text message from my boyfriend Kai. Happy 23rd birthday, baby Luna. Come over, Luna. Iris and I are cooking up a feast to celebrate. Wait, didn't I die? How? A strange idea began forming in my mind. Could it be? The sudden wail of an ambulance siren interrupted me. My gaze snapped to the window, pupils contracting sharply. By the flower bed outside lay a bloodied figure. Motionless on the pavement, a crowd had gathered around. Paramedics rushed out of the ambulance and surrounded the person on the ground. After exchanging solemn headshakes, they covered the body with a sheet. It turned out someone had jumped from the rooftop of the opposite building 10 minutes earlier. Cold sweat kept pouring down my body. The mournful wails outside could no longer hold my attention, because I knew exactly what was coming next. It seems I've truly been reborn. Ding dong, my phone vibrated with a photo notification from Kai. I tapped to see my bestie Iris smiling while holding a gorgeous cake. Kai stood behind, holding several pink balloons in his hands. They looked like a couple deeply in love. Staring at their faces in the photo sent a sharp pain through my head. Did I just reincarnate? This was the man who kept professing his love for me, the same man who, together with my decade-long best friend, pushed me straight into the zombie horde. It was these 2 despicable bastards who made me live in such constant fear during the apocalypse, only to still lose my life in the end. Staring at the photo on my phone, I felt nauseous, retching uncontrollably. My fingers flew across the phone screen, rapidly tapping out several lines of text. I'm so sorry. Sobs. My boss just assigned me an urgent business trip to City A. Just as I was about to send a few more messages to make it sound more genuine, their reply came flying in. What a shame. Don't worry, Luna's working hard to earn money. When we get back, Iris and I will make it up to you with a proper birthday celebration. Kai's message made me physically sick. After my parents disappeared, they left me an apartment, a car, and 300,000 yuan. Over these years with Kai, he and Iris sweet talked me into investing 200,000 yuan in their so-called venture. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine the 2 people I trusted with all my heart would secretly hook up behind my back. In the end, it cost me my life, being slowly devoured by zombies, bite by agonizing bite. Now that fate has given me a second chance, I'll never let that nightmare repeat itself. I'll make sure to witness those scumbags get exactly what they deserve. I will survive and thrive in this apocalyptic world. My gaze involuntarily fell upon the bracelet around my wrist. I grabbed the small scissors from the nightstand and jabbed them into my hand. Drops of blood trickled from my palm onto the bracelet, which suddenly emitted a blinding light. Ding, portable subspace successfully bound. Hearing this inexplicable voice, I immediately felt a wave of relief wash over me. In my past life, I never realized the bracelet's mystical properties. I simply thought it was pretty. My mother gave it to me before she disappeared, saying it was a family heirloom I must never take off. Little did I know, after the apocalypse, Iris would snatch it for its beauty, ripping off a layer of my skin in the process, too. Had their bedroom door not been slightly ajar that time, letting me witness Iris magically produce a cup of instant noodles from her bracelet, I'd never have guessed the accessory held such secrets. Taking the hairband off my wrist, I mentally commanded, "Stir this." The hairband vanished instantly from my hand. I repeated the process, and it worked nearly every single time. I wonder if I can enter the space. Silently repeating in my heart, "Let me into the space." The moment those words left my lips, the scenery before me transformed instantly. A cozy 2-bedroom apartment materialized before my eyes. A timetable on the living room wall caught my attention because it was peculiar, displaying 3 sets of times. One showed 07, 10, 30, another 5, 00, 00, and the last 00, 00, 00, circling past the living room. I pushed open a door to reveal a roughly 20 square meter bedroom. It had a bed, wardrobe, and such, but lacked bedding or covers. The second room took me completely by surprise. To be precise, this wasn't so much a room as an actual warehouse. The warehouse was roughly divided into 2 sections. One section was just empty space with nothing in it. Another section neatly housed 30 large storage shelves in a compact arrangement. One shelf was completely stocked with food, including at least 10 bulk bags of instant noodles alone. No wonder Iris could still pull out food from this space in her past life without prior stocking opportunities. Counting my steps, I estimated this area to be roughly 400 to 500 square meters. Beyond these, there's also a bathroom, a kitchen, and a 30 square meter terrace. A large capacity trash bin is placed in the corner of the terrace. The terrace even connects to a nearly 100 square meter field on its side. This space is full of surprises at every turn. With this plot of land, I should still be able to grow fresh vegetables after the apocalypse. As I exited the space, my eyes instinctively darted to the timetable, then the scene shifted back to my familiar bedroom. I grabbed paper and pen from the nightstand, recorded both entry and exit times from the clock, and after some thought, began to see the connection. The first time matches what's on my phone, that's the actual current time. The second one must be a 5-hour countdown. I still haven't figured out what this countdown and that unchanging final time actually mean. When I opened the bedroom door, 2 fluffy furballs came darting over, rubbing against my ankles. These are my 2 cats, Buddy and Mia. I opened 2 large cans of food and filled their bowls. Watching them purr and gobble down the food filled me with guilt. The secret of the bracelet from our past life was discovered by Iris only after all the food had been eaten. I was completely restrained by those toxic men and women. Then I watched helplessly as they skinned the barely alive cubs and devoured their flesh. They feasted for 3 full days. The sickeningly sweet aroma of roasted meat permeated the house for those 3 days, filling me with grief and nausea. Given a second chance, how could I possibly let this happen again? Buddy and me are like family to me. I'll make sure to protect them with everything I've got. Playing with the feather wand for the little ones while planning my next moves. Judging from the zombie outbreak in my past life, I only have 7 days to prepare. During this time, I need to stockpile enough supplies to last me and my 2 fur babies for several years. Most importantly, in the apocalypse, you can't trust anyone's intentions, whether it's to fend off zombies or guard against opportunistic humans. I'll need to arm myself with both defensive and offensive weapons. I currently have 100,000 in savings, plus another 100,000 left by my parents. As a precaution, I've also secured nearly 200,000 from various loan platforms. With careful budgeting, this should be enough. Time was of the essence. After a quick breakfast and requesting 10 days leave from my boss via phone, I immediately set out to gather supplies. I went to the car rental shop, looked around, and ended up renting a minivan from the owner for 10 days, after some persistent haggling. I got the owner to rent it to me for 900. Actually, my parents had left a car for me, but back then, Kai asked to borrow it for his commute a few times, and the car never made its way back to me. I cursed myself twice for being such a lovesick fool. Scrolling through my phone, I found the contact number of that window installer I'd randomly added before. We agreed I'd pay a deposit to have him install a security screen door today. Putting down my phone, I drove nearly an hour to the largest pet supplies factory in the neighboring city. When the boss heard I wanted to sponsor a stray cat rescue shelter in another city, he cheerfully led me into the factory. Buddy and me are such low-maintenance cats. They know how to use the toilet, saving me a fortune on cat litter. For a 10-year apocalyptic scenario, we'd need 120 bags of cat food, 1,000 cans of cat food, 10 years worth of deworming meds, internal-external, common feline medications, 10 cat beds, for cat trees, 30 scratching posts, 10 Elizabethan collars, and 10 sets of food/water bowls. Considering the need for stealth during the apocalypse, we'll only use 1 toys indoors, so I just bought 30 of them. After some thought, I don't think I've missed anything. Paid the deposit to the beaming, squinty-eyed shop owner and gave him the warehouse address, insisting he must deliver tomorrow. This warehouse was rented for Kai after he suddenly got the business bug and pestered me relentlessly for a year-long lease. Ended up being a wasted effort. The business never took off and the warehouse sat unused. Never thought this would actually come in handy. The warehouse is in a remote suburban area with few people around, and Kai would never come here anyway. Having the boss deliver the goods here is absolutely foolproof. After dealing with the cat situation, I planned to pick up some supplies in town before heading back. Following the GPS, I drove to the wholesale market where shelves were packed with everything imaginable. Try to pick items that are both affordable and healthy. I visited every wholesale market, farmer's market, and bazaar that showed up on the navigation, purchased goods in small batches, loaded them into the van, then transported everything to storage. I drove back to Fengqing while shopping, then continued my bulk buying spree at the wholesale market there. The final haul included 700 bags of salt, 500 bags of sugar, 30 portions each of various seasonings, 5 drums of soybean oil, 5 of olive oil, 10 each of peanut, corn, and rapeseed oil, plus 10 clay pots of homemade chili paste and fermented black beans, knowing fresh vegetables would be scarce during the apocalypse. I stocked 40 packs each of assorted dried fruits and dehydrated vegetable mixes, 30 cans each of milk powder, lotus root starch, and oatmeal, 30 large bags each of soy milk powder and cornmeal, 600 bags of rice, 200 g of flour, and 500 packs of 320 g noodles, 100 caddies of dried shiitake mushrooms, 100 caddies of dried wood ear fungus, 200 packs of seaweed, 50 caddies of dried kelp, and 50 caddies of dried bean curd sticks. Purchased 125 cases of instant noodles in various flavors. After all these trips, I'm completely exhausted. Can't believe it's already 6 p.m., realizing I hadn't eaten lunch. I grabbed a jianbing from a street vendor before continuing with the shopping. I drove to Fengqing's East Market, which specializes in clothing and home goods. It was almost 7 p.m., yet many vendors were still keeping their stalls open. With my mask secured, I browsed around and haggled with vendors, scoring everything I needed at rock-bottom prices: 10 pairs of summer sandals, 15 pairs of slippers, 10 pairs of winter boots, 10 pairs of fleece-lined slippers, 100 pairs of summer socks, 50 pairs of thermal winter socks, 20 sets of thermal underwear, 20 undershirts, 100 briefs, 10 winter hats, 10 scarves, 10 cold-proof capes, 100 basic t-shirts, 50 assorted summer pants, 30 fleece winter pants, 20 cashmere sweaters, 20 down jackets, 10 single electric blankets, 5 double electric blankets, 10 bedsheet sets, 5 bamboo mats, 10 summer quilts, 10 winter quilts, 15 triple-person foot warmers, 10 000 disposable heat packs, since I had the bosses vacuum seal the quilts and winter coats. These items were light enough for me to easily store in the space. It was already 11:30 at night when I got home. The moment I opened the door, the little ones immediately swarmed around me, rubbing vigorously against my feet, patting Buddy's sturdy body and ruffling Mia's little head. I noticed both fur balls were purring a whole octave louder than usual after setting out food and water for my 2 cats. I immediately took a hot shower to wash off the day's sweat and grime. I cooked a pot of instant noodles loaded with bok choy, lettuce, and spinach as a treat for myself, while watching a heartwarming drama to go with my meal, with my 2 beloved cats by my side. This peaceful and wonderful life is something I want to hold on to tightly. 5. I was jolted awake by my phone ringing at 9 a.m. I wrestled my foot free from Buddy's weight and answered the out-of-town call. Turned out the pet factory owner had arranged overnight delivery of cat supplies to our warehouse. I remotely opened the warehouse door via my phone, rushed through my morning routine, and sped to the facility. The moment I stepped out of the car, I saw the boss approaching with a beaming smile. "Hey boss, perfect timing. Come take a look and check the inventory." I took the order sheet from the boss and cross-checked it against the warehouse stock. Everything was neatly organized and matched up almost perfectly. All good here. I promptly handed over the final payment. After confirming the boss and his entourage had left, I shut the warehouse door. I began systematically transferring items into the space, organizing them one by one. After placing the final item inside, I stepped into the space myself. I scanned every corner of the space. Nothing had changed except for the clock on the wall. The first time displayed on the wall matches exactly with my phone's current time. The second display has just started a 5-hour countdown. The final timer, which initially showed 000000, now displays 3:36:15. I suspect the second timer indicates my daily time allowance in this space, hence the 5-hour countdown. The third time slot refers to those unused 5 daily hours that become available. 3. I should be able to bank these hours. The save time will let me stay longer in the safe space when the apocalypse comes. Medications will undoubtedly become critical yet scarce resources during the end times. I spent the entire morning buying excessive amounts of medicine from various pharmacies under different pretexts, probably more than I'll ever need. I also stocked up on various Chinese herbal medicines for body conditioning and immunity boosting at the traditional pharmacy. While passing by the appliance mall, I picked up 10 freezers, 10 cooling fans, 10 electric kettles, 10 immersion heaters, 3 generators with 3 power banks, 10 hair dryers, 10 shoe dryers, 5 vacuum sealers and 5,000 bags. Since the freezers were too bulky, I gave the store owner my warehouse address for delivery. After leaving the appliance mall, I drove straight to the wholesale market for daily necessities. I scouted several stores with the most comprehensive inventory, largest floor space, and substantial stock levels. All spaced far apart, then systematically selected goods, haggled, transported, and made payments. After multiple trips, purchases included 100 cases of toilet paper, 50 bags of laundry detergent, 100 bars of soap, 100 bars of scented soap, 50 sulfur soaps, 100 dish sponges, 20 steel wool pads, 20 toilet brushes, 1,000 lidded bowl sets, 20,000 plastic trash bags, 20 brooms, 10 mops, and 100 cleaning cloths. Also acquired 15 combs, 10 sets each of various kitchen knives, 3 woks, 5 spatulas, 50,000 candles, 10 flashlights, 60 packs of batteries, 50 tubes of toothpaste, 100 toothbrushes, 100 bottles of specialized shampoos, 50 bottles of conditioner, and 200 bottles of disinfectant. After payment, everything was transported into storage using the same batch-by-batch method. The appliances I bought this afternoon have arrived at the warehouse entrance. I remotely opened the warehouse door via my phone to facilitate unloading. After storing everything in the space, I went home to take Mia to the vet for spaying. I spent several hours waiting at the clinic keeping her company. My heart ached seeing her curled up in her bed wearing the cone after surgery, tears welling up in my eyes. But there was no choice in these apocalyptic times. We couldn't arrange for spaying earlier and had to do it now. After confirming Mia showed no complications at the clinic, I brought her home. It was already 9 p.m. by then, the moment I got home. I immediately prepared a nutritious meal for Mia and opened a recovery formula can to help her regain energy. Watching her sniff and then devour the food heartily put my mind at ease. Lying on the couch, I kept an eye on Mia's condition while frantically placing orders on my phone. 6. For days until the apocalypse, the handyman came to install my door today. While supervising the work, I kept placing frantic orders on Pinduoduo using their buy now, pay later feature. My recent orders include 20 skincare sets, 1,000 packs of regular sanitary pads, 350 overnight pads, 200 extra long overnight pads, 100 pairs of period underwear, 30 pairs of sanitary shorts, 10 boxes of face masks, 1,000 disposable gloves, 30 pairs of rubber gloves, 30 jars of assorted jams, 5 pairs of night vision goggles, 3 high-definition telescopes, wood glue, super glue, hot melt adhesive, and 20 black trench coats, 5 metal baseball bats, 5 military shovels, 5 multi-tools, 20 dart practice sets, 1,000 throwing knives, 20 high-voltage anti-wolf devices, 20 pepper sprays, 100 metal door jammers, 10 chainsaws, 5 compound bows, 10,000 steel ball bearings, 30 10-tier 2-meter shelving units, 5 mini cameras, 10 high-capacity USB drives, 5 gas masks, 2 cases each of assorted breads, 10 cases of 8 treasure porridge, 200 packets each of 50 vegetable seed varieties including baby bok choy, crown daisy, lettuce, scallions, yumai greens, Shanghai greens, choy sum, pak choy, cilantro, celery, chives, loofah, etc. I deliberately used different shipping addresses and contact info for each online purchase. Though collecting packages becomes more cumbersome, it significantly reduces security risks. While frantically placing orders, I was simultaneously replying to Kai's Babe Cuddles texts and Iris's "this outfit is so hot" messages. Everything seemed normal. I had no clue about their secret schemes or the disgusting things they'd done after the apocalypse, after the workers finished. I inspected everything and paid the remaining balance once confirmed. Time has always been precious to me. After the workers left, I drove to the electronics market and picked up 2 used laptops, 5 refurbished tablets, and 3 brand new tablets. The freezer had arrived, so I could finally start stocking up on meat without hesitation. I drove around to different markets, buying modest amounts from each butcher stall. By the end, I'd accumulated 1,000 gene of pork, 400 gene each of mutton and beef, 500 gene of chicken, 400 gene of duck, 100 pre-cleaned fish, and 500 gene of assorted cured meats and sausages from various nearby markets, about 100 gene of assorted favorite fruits. I picked up some vegetables too, but kept the quantity in check since they take up space and don't last long. We've got land and seeds to grow our own anyway, since I bought so much. One vendor even threw in a pair of chicks and rabbits as a bonus. I swung by to collect some early arrived packages before heading home. The moment I opened the door, Buddy came bounding over with his usual enthusiastic welcome. Mia lounged on her favorite couch, giving me a lazy tail flick. The canned food and nutritional meals had already been devoured. Hard to tell whether Mia or that glutton Buddy polished it off. I opened another recovery can for Mia. Mia sniffed the air and cautiously hopped off the couch, then eagerly gobbled up the food from the can, with lightning reflexes. I scooped up Buddy as he tried to sneak past and lifted him into my arms. No. Sweetie, your sister isn't feeling well, this is for her. Gave Buddy's plump, bouncy bottom an affectionate pat. That chunky rump could rival a marshmallow. Took out the meat I bought from storage and gave it a quick prep, then sorted everything and stored it in the freezer. Only noticed several unread WeChat messages when I finally plopped on the couch to rest. Click to check, it was Kai. Has Luna returned from her business trip? After scrolling through some meaningless pleasantries, I finally saw the bullshit he was trying to spew. Luna. Iris accidentally hit someone with her car the other day. They're demanding 500,000 right off the bat. We all know about Iris's situation. We're the only ones who can help her now. I did the math. Selling your parents' condo would cover Iris's troubles. We could even take a vacation with the leftover money, maybe put some aside. In my past life, I followed their advice and sold my house for 700K, only to end up homeless and forced to move into their shared apartment. The zombie outbreak hit right after I moved in. Kai and Iris dropped all pretense, flaunting their lovey-dovey hubby and wifey act in front of me daily. This time I'm wide awake. I've got 2 fur babies counting on me for protection. I'm never making that love-struck fool's mistake again. I'm not selling the house, and that's final. Fingers flew across the screen as I quickly composed and sent the message. What? That's serious? All right, I'll contact the agent today. Let me swing by to pick up my car first. It's such a hassle running errands without a car. They hesitated visibly when I asked for the car, but reluctantly agreed, knowing how inconvenient paperwork would be without wheels. All right then. Just remember to fill up the tank before returning it to me. I couldn't help but find it amusing. After lending him my car for so long, he started acting like it's his own, picked up my car and keys from Kai at his workplace, deftly dodging his flirtatious gestures before finally bidding him a reluctant farewell. Since Kai and Iris worked at the same company, they decided to become roommates after discussing it. They're both at work now, so the house is empty. I disabled all the tracking features in the car before driving to their apartment complex. With practiced ease, I retrieved the key from the vase and unlocked the door. The floor bore unmistakable signs of recent physical activity, installed mini cameras in several extremely concealed locations. After verifying the footage, I rummaged through their food supplies, just a carton of milk, about 1:1, 5 kilograms of rice, 3 packs of instant noodles, and some bread, without hesitation. I collected every last item into my storage space. I rummaged through the house and, oh my, found quite a few little raincoats tucked away in the wardrobe. Not a single one escaped my needle. I poked tiny holes in each and every one. Wouldn't it be more amusing to watch them struggle for survival in this post-apocalyptic world? After tampering with their door just slightly, I left that house brimming with memories of pain and despair. After picking up a dozen packages on my way, I got a phone call. It was a call from a used car dealership. Hello, we spoke yesterday. Yes, I've got a car I can sell you for $100K. We can close the deal today. The deal was done in no time, and the $100K hit my account instantly. I walked into restaurant after restaurant with my last $100,000. Eventually, I'd ordered 100 portions of every dish I truly enjoyed at breakfast joints. I'd buy every last pastry they had in stock. I spared no expense at my favorite street food stalls either. Thank goodness food doesn't spoil in the storage dimension, or my post-apocalyptic self would curse my current mindless hoarding spree. For the next 3 days, I just kept harvesting supplies and collecting delivery packages on repeat. I'd swing by every supermarket, farmer's market, and wholesale district to scavenge for overlooked essentials. Doomsday countdown, 1 day remaining. After fetching the last package delivery, I closed the door. I took out 30 metal door stoppers from storage. Those little things were surprisingly tricky to install. It took me 2 full hours to get them all set up. Seeing those 25 sturdy door stoppers packed tightly across the door gave me an overwhelming sense of security. Scooping up Mia, who was nuzzling at my feet, I took a deep whiff of her fur. Phew, let's see who dares mess with us this time. Checking the time, we've got just over 20 hours before the zombie outbreak. I went to the kitchen, emptied all the cooked rice from 3 electric rice cookers into a stainless steel tub, then proceeded to rinse more rice and start new batches. Between rice cooking cycles, I spent my time stir-frying and stewing dishes. We need to prepare extra meals while people still have ingredients available, otherwise the cooking smells and sounds might give us away later. Constant boiling, endless frying, perpetual stewing. Thank goodness we bought enough ingredients. By the time I collapsed on the couch, completely exhausted, I'd already cooked 4 stainless steel buckets of rice, stir-fried 3 buckets of vegetables, and stewed 3 buckets of dishes. It was already 6 p.m. by then. I was dead tired, but I couldn't stop now. Even the toilet water needed to be collected in buckets. I went to the bathroom, stashed the full water bucket into my storage space, then took out a new one to continue collecting water. A massive queue of resources on the coffee table: novels, TV shows, movies, various books, medical literature and videos were downloading in sequence. Whenever I lounge on the sofa, Mia patrols every corner of the house like a little scout. I often wonder if she sees me as an inattentive mother who needs her vigilant perimeter checks. Just thinking about it makes me feel so warm and fuzzy. The neutering recovery has been going really well. Buddy's a whole different story though. Ever since his neutering 6 months ago, he's become super clingy and developed quite the appetite. This 10-pound furball remains blissfully unaware of its own heft, currently purring away while crushing my chest. Talk about love with weight. After a good stretch post-nap, it's back to the kitchen for some serious sizzling and simmering. The apocalypse arrives in 3 hours. Woke up groggily in the morning, snuggled Buddy under the blanket, all warm and cuddly. Scrolled through endless trending topics on my phone, no signs of zombies or apocalypse. Got a text from Kai asking about the house. I texted him back saying I'm on my way. With that, I stopped paying him any mind and got up to wash and dress. Last night before bed, I set the rice cooker to make 3 pots of black rice porridge. I ladled out a bowl to cool for later and poured the rest into a stainless steel container for storage. Sitting by the window, playing with my fur baby using a cat teaser while keeping an eye on the surroundings. Our windows have one-way tinted glass. As a kid, I used to get mad at my dad about this all the time. I blamed him for installing these windows that prevented me from interacting with kids in the opposite building. Now, this very same glass layer has become part of our security measures. The neighborhood showed no signs of anything unusual at the moment. People went about their daily routines, some heading to work, Others to school. Stanley, the diligent security guard, stood watch at the gate, greeting everyone with a warm smile. He'd practically watched me grow up, and even helped search tirelessly after my parents disappeared. Watching him, my heart aches with sorrow. If zombies come, he'll undoubtedly be the first to face danger, but there's nothing to be done. I've decided to stop helping anyone. The apocalypse begins in 1 hour. For the past hour, I've been endlessly scrolling through the latest videos and updates. Suddenly, a video titled "Girl with Suspected Rabies Bites Passengers on Subway" popped up on my screen. The thumbnail showed a girl being tightly restrained by multiple people, with several bloodied individuals lying or sitting nearby. I clicked to get a clearer look, but it was quickly replaced with a video deleted notice, one after another. Similar messages surfaced only to vanish without making a ripple. I knew it, the apocalypse had arrived. To pass this agonizing stretch of time, I retrieved my backlog of packages from storage and began unboxing them, unpacking, sorting items, flattening boxes to bundle with twine. I methodically prepared everything before returning the materials to storage as future kindling. Just as I'd opened about a tenth of the packages, screams suddenly erupted downstairs, startled. My hand jerked violently and I nearly cut myself. I walked to the window to check what was happening outside. A couple stood at the residential gate, the man moving stiffly as he lunged to bite the woman. The girlfriend sat frozen on the side, completely motionless. Security guard Stanley shouted at the girl to get away while charging at the boyfriend with his riot shield, but Stanley was clearly outmatched by the now zombified boyfriend, who quickly overpowered and shoved him to the ground. The zombified boyfriend turned to bite his still-dazed girlfriend, only to be tackled from behind by Stanley, who had scrambled back up. "What are you waiting for? Run!" Stanley shouted at the panicked girlfriend. Jolted by Stanley's yell, the girlfriend snapped out of her daze, shuffling backward before turning to flee unsteadily, but Stanley behind her wasn't so fortunate. After struggling with the zombie, his strength gave out. The riot shield was pinned against his chest as the undead boyfriend tore a gaping wound in his neck. The crowd that rushed to help stood frozen in shock, staring in disbelief at Stanley convulsing on the ground while his zombified boyfriend nodded him. The girlfriend sobbed hysterically at the edge of the crowd. Brendan, it's me, Clara, don't you recognize me?" After feeding for a moment, the zombified boyfriend rose again, his face smeared with blood as he charged toward the terrified onlookers, tear-streaked and screaming hoarsely. The girlfriend shoved through the armed crowd, accusing the defensive bystanders with desperate fury. "What the hell are you doing? Brendan wouldn't hurt you. What's with the bats and clubs? I swear I'll call the cops on you for assault." Assault. The girlfriend spun around in shock just as her zombie boyfriend sank his teeth into her neck. A spray of warm blood splattered across her face. The girlfriend collapsed limply as her former lover savored the taste of her flesh. Behind them, Stanley rose in a grotesque posture and began gnawing at the girl's leg. Stanley, the security guard's wife burst out from the crowd, only to be firmly restrained by bystanders. The crowd hastily retreated, pulling shut the residential gate to isolate the compound from those outside. Everything happened in a flash. I drew the curtains and poured myself a glass of water from the dispenser, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I thought I wouldn't be scared if I tried again. Turns out I'm still terrified. Just as I was regaining my composure, Kai called. I cleared my throat and answered the call. "Luna, how's it going? What's the asking price for the house? Seems like the zombie outbreak news hasn't reached him yet." "Kai," my voice trembled uncontrollably. "Kai, there were people with rabies attacking others right in front of me. I'm hiding now. Kai, come save me please. I'm so scared. Kai, I think they're about to find me." After delivering these lines, I set the phone aside and crumpled nearby cardboard scraps to mimic flesh-tearing sounds, punctuated with occasional pained whimpers. Kai kept asking what's wrong, repeatedly, but after getting no response from me for a long time, he eventually hung up the phone. The moment the call ended, I immediately turned on the computer monitor. Everything was connected there, including the cameras installed in their house. Iris coquettishly snuggled up to Kai, batting her big, manipulative doe eyes while speaking in a distinctly displeased tone. "Kai, what did she mean by that?" Kai took a drag of his cigarette while groping Iris's thigh. "No idea. Weird. Let me call her again to check." The phone on the table kept vibrating. But this time I wasn't going to answer his call. I'd completely lost interest in opening packages by this point. Scrolling through my phone by the window, I kept watching the unfolding chaos outside. The horde of zombies outside our compound had swollen to 20 or 30 strong. Nearly every passerby fell victim to them. The neighborhood's WeChat group exploded with activity as everyone discussed the recent incident. Most dismissed it as a mutated strain of rabies and didn't take it seriously. Grumbling about the property management's decision to temporarily lock down the complex, a few members sensed apocalyptic undertones and urged others to stockpile supplies in the group chat, but messages scrolled by too quickly. These warnings were drowned out in the flood of complaints against the property managers before gaining traction. I sighed quietly to myself, exiting WeChat. I scrolled through videos hoping to learn about situations in other regions. I came across several videos tagged zombie or rabies, but they kept getting mysteriously taken down before I could watch them properly. In the kitchen, I cooked several pots of rice and stir-fried multiple batches of dishes. No matter how much I stockpile these essential supplies that give me a sense of security, it never feels like enough. Day 3 of the zombie outbreak. I stored the filled water bucket from the toilet into my dimensional space and took out a new one to replace it. I've stopped cooking stir-fries altogether. During this time, I kept watching out the window and saw many familiar faces. Frustrated by the property management's lockdown, over 20 residents banded together and forced open the sealed gates past midnight, overpowering the security guards. In the end, they all became fresh recruits for the zombie horde. Their families witnessed everything, and soon the entire neighborhood echoed with wails of grief. Some brave souls rushed out to confront the zombies in desperate attempts to save their infected family members, only to end up joining the undead horde themselves. After witnessing these tragic outcomes, no one dared to act recklessly anymore. The shattered residential gate couldn't be repaired, allowing hordes of zombies to flood in and roam the compound freely. Kai kept calling me repeatedly, but I never picked up. From their conversation on the surveillance feed, it seems they assumed I'd been devoured by zombies on the very first day. That was exactly my intention, but they're having a rough time of it. They thought they had enough supplies stocked up, so they didn't rush to hoard provisions initially. They only realized they'd completely run out of food when it was time to eat. This led to a heated argument between the two. The security footage showed Kai and Iris constantly typing on their phones before heading out. Soon they returned with a plastic bag containing a few pounds of rice, likely purchased from a neighbor. Their relationship is still going strong. Quickly cooked the rice, added some seasoning, and devoured it with delight. Then with a full stomach came lustful thoughts, taking out the torn from the wardrobe. The rest was too much to bear. Even the delicious meal in my hands lost its appeal. Covered the screen with a rag to spare my fur baby's delicate eyes. I laid thick soundproof padding across the floor. The slightly cool weather seemed perfect for my two fur balls, who kept rolling on the padding and flashing their bellies to them. Nothing's changed in this world, except I no longer leave home every day. After quietly patrolling around, Mia came back and curled up beside me, contentedly grooming herself. Buddy kept circling and sniffing around the foam roller, pawing at the spot where I usually keep the cat teaser. He absolutely loves batting that cat teaser around in that corner. The jingling sound of the cat teaser was too conspicuous, so I stashed it in my storage space on the second day of the apocalypse to avoid drawing unwanted attention. Walked over and scooped Buddy onto my lap, giving him comforting pets. He fell asleep purring almost instantly. Day 15 of the apocalypse. My daily routine involves scouting outside, monitoring those toxic X's, tracking zombie numbers, playing with my fur baby, studying survival guides, and practicing with my compound bow. Compared to my past life, the structured routine I have now feels almost surreal. I check our neighborhood WeChat group daily, watching the growing anxiety in the chat. Residents are furious at the property management's inaction. Nothing's been done since the gate was breached. Most households are now running critically low on supplies. Could anyone spare a bag of rice for my family? I can pay 1,000 yuan, 1,000 yuan. That's too low. Maybe I'd consider it for 10,000 yuan, 10,000 yuan. Good grief. Are you trying to rob me? Does anyone have fever medicine? My child has had a fever for 2 days. Could any kind soul share some medicine? Many people in these messages were calling for group supply runs. Several groups went scavenging, but only the last few returned with meager supplies. Most residents preferred bartering within the compound over risking their lives outside. Night fell quickly. I've always played dead, never responding to anyone's messages, so even though the power's still on, I won't risk turning on the lights. After wiping myself down with wet wipes early, I used my phone's dim light to call my two fur babies to bed. Buddy and Mia followed me into the room. I quietly closed the bedroom door and snuggled up with them, drifting off to sleep in the warmth. A piercing scream jolted me awake at midnight, followed by sounds of a scuffle and continuous wailing. After calming the frightened Mia, I tiptoed back to the living room and peered through the telescope at the window. The commotion came from the 4th floor of the opposite building. With all lights blazing, I could see everything happening inside clearly. This household originally ran a grocery store and had stockpiled massive supplies. They'd frequently post photos of their hoarded goods in the neighborhood chat, then sell them at inflated prices. But tonight, when everyone's guard was down, they got raided by 2 other desperate families who'd run out of supplies. Within minutes, the place was cleaned out. The whole family sat wailing on the floor. The 2 raiding families had already made their getaway, staring at the security door already barricaded with 25 door stoppers. I pondered for a moment before retrieving a large quantity of thumbtacks from my dimensional storage. 7. I meticulously scattered the thumbtacks across the floor from the entrance to the living room. Then I strategically placed more tacks near all potential entry points like windows, Only after completing these defensive measures could I finally retreat to my bedroom and sleep soundly. When I woke up in the morning, I went through all the group messages as usual, especially the neighborhood group chat. Many people were discussing what happened last night. Everyone was comforting the burglarized family and condemning the thieves, but I could sense strong envy and schadenfreude in their words. 1 month into the apocalypse, I've kept every inch of the space as land productive. My morning routine begins with tending vegetables and caring for the baby rabbits and chicks inside the space. Buddy and Mia were chasing each other around playfully nearby. Compared to the oppressive environment outside, it felt like a peaceful pastoral life inside the space. Before the 3-hour limit expired, the human and 2 cats exited the space, perched by the window. I kept watch for any suspicious movements outside while painfully studying medical texts by the sliver of light sneaking through the curtains. The phone's vibration startled me. When I picked it up, it was actually Kai calling. He hadn't called or texted me since last time when he thought I'd been killed by zombies. What could be the reason for the sudden call? I immediately checked the surveillance footage. Kai, I'm absolutely certain she's still alive. She must have stockpiled supplies and gone into hiding. Kai, you've got to believe me. Iris's face was bruised in several places, her frame noticeably thinner. Gone was her former plump, healthy figure. Their meager food supply ran out just days after the apocalypse began. After several bartering attempts, everyone was in the same dire situation. Few were willing to trade. Only a handful of courageous men managed to scavenge some supplies, relying on teamwork and sheer physical endurance. Those scumbags have been surviving solely on the compensation Iris earned by selling her body. Kai has developed a much more ruthless edge. The law's grip on people is loosening by the day. Some have resorted to extreme measures to secure supplies, and Kai happens to be one of them. Is that really true? Iris snapped angrily. Absolutely. Otherwise, why would she refuse to celebrate her birthday? Why wouldn't she sell the house and move here sooner? Trust me. That damn woman must have stockpiled a ton of food and is feasting right now. As Iris kept ranting, Kai remained skeptical. His eyes grew wild with excitement as he saw the calling display on his phone. My heart sank. Oh no. I noticed the problem too. The fact that the call went through means the phone still has battery. It's been a month since my death. My phone should have run out of battery long ago. The fact that it's still charged means I'm not really dead. My fists clenched as I stared fixedly at the phone screen. Then after a moment, I laughed. Fine, so you found me. Let's see if you've got what it takes to face me. Even if you make it here, we'll see who's really calling the shots. Kai gripped a collapsible baton, flicked it open with a sharp motion, then ran his fingers along its length thoughtfully. Meanwhile, Iris dialed her regular clients' numbers, ready to call in reinforcements. Luckily, their apartment was just on the 2nd floor. Need backup. I can call for reinforcements too. The 2 fully armed figures had already moved some distance after opening the door. I seized the moment and pressed the button in my hand. The festive tune of Good Fortune Comes exploded through the air. The sudden turn of events startled the pair. The nearby zombies reacted with alarming speed, converging on their location. Kai and Iris hastily retreated into the house. They barely made it in time. Just as the zombies' claws were about to grab Iris from behind, the 2 dashed back inside. With a thunderous bang, the door slammed shut, separating the howling undead from the terrified pair now safely inside. Iris was too petrified to speak. Nobody could have predicted that a random song would start playing at this moment. Kai's eyes burned with pure malice. Well, so you're not dead after all. You've been playing me. That move just gave away my position. Can't believe these 2 are still alive after that. No matter. I've got all the time in the world to play this game with you. Iris's unusual behavior has me concerned. Could it be? Did she also get reborn? 2 months into the apocalypse, I thought for sure Kai and Iris would come running the moment they realized I was still alive. But after luring zombies to block them a few times with my old tricks, nothing happened for nearly 2 weeks. Just some shady deals with the supply kingpin in our building. Never dropping my guard. I kept up daily surveillance like clockwork, stuff from lunch in my hideout. I lazily scanned the surroundings through my binoculars. The zombies are getting smarter. From just wandering around buildings at first, they've now learned to climb stairs and mimic human speech. Without courage, weapons, or companions, people dare not even open their doors to trade or scavenge for supplies, terrified of rounding a corner straight into a zombie. Only organized teams manage to bring back supplies from outside. The neighborhood chat has gone quiet. Many have simply vanished without a trace. Some speculated they starved to death. Others thought they opened the door to zombies. And a few believed they jumped from the building one night. Oh my God. I just heard something on the radio. A piece of news caught everyone's attention. What news? Someone immediately asked. The signal kept cutting out. But I think they said there'll be an airdrop at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Really? Seriously? That's amazing. The group chat instantly lit up with excitement. The supplies arrived right on schedule the next day. A helicopter dropped numerous packages over the residential area before hastily flying away. The packages lay piled on the ground, yet strangely, no one came forward to claim them. After what felt like an eternity, a trash bag came hurtling down from an apartment unit. Bang. landing with a heavy thud on the flower bed below. As expected, the zombies lurking near the supplies began swarming toward Building 1. Seeing it worked, the man kept tossing down bag after bag of trash. The door of Building 3 behind the supplies creaked open as a fully armored man, wrapped head to toe, tiptoed to the stockpile, snatched 6 or 7 bags, and darted back inside. Soon after, several more trash bags came raining down from Building 3, with the zombies distracted by the noise. A man emerged from Building 1. The man tiptoed away with 5 or 6 bags of supplies. Seeing their success, others quickly followed suit. The situation immediately descended into chaos. The supplies were snatched up in no time. Every cloud has a silver lining. Some danced with joy after securing supplies. Others beat their chests in frustration after narrowly missing out. The unluckiest didn't even make it past the doorway before becoming zombie chow. I suppose grabbing supplies in full public view might actually be a hidden risk, but when supplies run dangerously low, desperate measures become unavoidable. Just as expected, the neighborhood chat erupted with hostile arguments. Those who missed out are now aggressively persuading the lucky ones to share their supplies. 8 outright threats. In the dead of night, half asleep, I seemed to hear screams, wails, and the sounds of smashing. I got up to check what was happening. 5 families who'd secured supplies during the day were burglarized by multiple intruders that night. An entire family was slaughtered. Women from 3 households were violated. 1 family fought desperately to the end. The surviving husband leaped from the balcony clutching his wife and child's lifeless bodies. Though the home invaders escaped with substantial loot, their numbers were decimated by zombies during their retreat. I kept counting my blessings for the second chance. Fully stocked supplies in a fortress-like safe haven. Having my furry companion by my side gives me strength. It was a restless night's sleep. For months into the apocalypse, the neighborhood has been without water and electricity for a while now. The internet connection gradually deteriorated before cutting out completely. These disruptions haven't affected me too much. The main inconveniences are losing contact with group chats and the outside world, plus having to use plastic bags for bathroom needs. Life goes on, and I still maintain my daily routine of exercise, practicing with a compound bow, and studying medical and pharmaceutical knowledge. I thought today would be another quiet day, until there came a knock at the door. Instead of the toxic men and women I was prepared for, an unexpectedly gentle visitor arrived, after knocking for a while with no response. The person outside lowered their voice and said, "Hello, I mean no harm." They seemed certain someone was inside the house. They continued, "You're alone here, aren't you? I just moved in. I live right below you. The sound is faint, but I can just make out some clattering noises coming from your place. I mean no harm, I'm alone too. I just want to form an alliance with you. If you ever change your mind or run into trouble, just knock 3 times on your stool leg. I'll come help." Spoken with genuine sincerity and heartfelt emotion, clutching my compound bow, I stared coldly at the doorway. The voices outside fell silent, followed by the sound of retreating footsteps. I crouched by the door for what felt like ages, making sure they were truly gone. In the following days, a few zombies began gathering at my door, howling and occasionally slamming against it. I teleported the couch into storage and back out, silently positioning it to barricade the doorway. The zombies' howl still sent chills down my spine. I kept my distance to avoid detection at all costs. That guy downstairs would always show up right after the zombies left my door, then left behind a few gentle words of comfort. By the 5th day of this standoff, the man's patience had clearly worn thin. From gentle knocks to forced entry attempts, from soft-spoken pleas to vicious threats, the door held firm. Strangely enough, no zombies appeared during this time. After some thought, I realized there must be many accomplices. They didn't last long outside before leaving again. I planned to keep watch tonight. Just as expected, I noticed something unusual at 4 a.m. The metallic clang of the outer iron gate signaled they'd resorted to brute force. "I'm dying. Someone help. I know where to find stockpiled supplies." My feeble voice barely carried through the double doors. "What? Say again." Hearing the noise, the person outside perked up and pressed their ear hard against the door. Rustling sounds came from behind as faint whispers reached me. It seemed many others were crowding closer. I kept speaking softly while timing it perfectly, then yanked the wall-embedded switch with sudden force. Without mercy, I cranked the power to maximum. Crackle pop, The moment I flipped the switch, the buzz of electricity and waves of screams erupted, followed by the sickening scent of charred flesh. I slid the switch back into place, ears straining for sounds beyond the door. The howls of zombies are rapidly approaching. 9 heavy, dragging footsteps hauled outside my door, followed by the sickening sounds of flesh being torn and chewed. Muffled moans of agony punctuate the gruesome feast. Then the footsteps fade into the distance, and silence reclaims the night. I've been on edge the entire day. Day 135 of the apocalypse, finally reunited with an old friend after all this time. A fully armed group wielding cleavers and axes. Several of them were actually wearing iron armor. A dozen people advanced in perfect formation. They dispatched the approaching zombies with practiced efficiency. In moments, they slipped quietly through the breached compound gate. Look at their path. They're heading straight toward my apartment building. As they got closer, two of them struck me as oddly familiar. I quickly grabbed my binoculars. Well, after all this waiting, my old acquaintances finally showed up. The playboy and the gold digger have changed a lot. Kai was as thin as a monkey, dressed in tattered clothes, with several long scars now marring his once handsome face. In comparison, Iris looked much better. Her previously gaunt face had filled out, and she was now affectionately clinging to the scarred man in iron armor beside her, dainty and delicate like a little bird. After all this training, I'm confident I can handle it, run through all my trusty weapons, especially the compound bow I've been practicing with daily. After all those people entered the hallway, I launched the drone from the bathroom window, piloted it straight into the corridor, then activated the low-frequency noise that drives zombies wild. Setting the drone to hover, I took position by the door and waited in silence. Sure enough, the sound of several people outside soon reached our ears. "Boss, this is the place. That damn bitch actually dared to mess with me," Kai spat viciously. "Yeah, look at how this door's installed." Iris chimed in with her syrupy, ingratiating tone. "Not bad. Not bad. This could actually work as our base. What are you waiting for? Pry the damn door open." Hearing the telltale scratching of someone picking the lock, I immediately electrified the door. "Arg," came a pained scream. "What's going on?" "It's live, boss. The door's electrified." Someone outside immediately panicked. "Electricity. Perfect timing, isn't it? Toby, you go." "Not willing." "What?" "Forgetting about your starving little brother." Hearing the door being pried open again, I didn't hesitate to crank the power to maximum. Thinking this was pointless, I simply called out, "Hey fellas, I'll open up. I'm opening the door." Release the door stoppers one by one before opening the door. Proceed until only the final electrified gate remains. "Hey sweetheart, open the damn door properly, bro." 10. Luna, the big guy and Kai spoke simultaneously. That shameless bastard Kai even tried to sidle up to me with something to say. I find it disgusting and refused to speak with him. Reveals the hand holding a cocked compound bow hidden behind the door. "Take aim, fire." Thwip. In an instant, Kai's words were cut short as I blew his head off, twitching on the ground. Blood gushed rhythmically from the gaping wound in his skull. Everything happened too suddenly. Iris's scream pierced through the silent hallway with jarring intensity. "Are you trying to get us killed? You'll bring the zombies down on us." The gang leader reacted swiftly, backhanding Iris with a slap that sent her reeling. "You refuse the toast but accept the punishment. Get them." He yanked a bystander to use as a human shield. These men were neighborhood troublemakers even before the apocalypse, but now they've descended into outright murder and pillaging. With that thought, I steeled my resolve. Better to deal with them now before they harm other survivors struggling to make it. Seizing their moment of hesitation, I steadied my compound bow and unleashed a volley. Screams erupted in waves. Amid the chaos, a familiar roar cut through the din. Immediately shut all doors and listened for movement outside. The pained moans gave way to desperate wails. The ordeal lasted a full half hour. Even if someone in the hallway escaped my gunfire earlier, it doesn't matter now. The low-frequency hum from the drone drew every zombie in the building. The only exit was blocked. No one could escape alive. Nobody poses any threat to my safety. The 5th month of the apocalypse. The days are getting colder. Cradling a steaming bowl of freshly cooked noodles, I'm curled up on the sofa wrapped in blankets with my feet resting on a cozy electric heater. The kittens are snuggled up against me obediently. The streets below are swarming with zombies. It's been ages since I've seen another living soul outside. No one disturbs me anymore. The neighborhood is eerily quiet, with nothing but the moans of zombies and the howling wind breaking the silence. The stillness is terrifying. It often feels like this place no longer belongs to the world of the living. The supply helicopters came twice, then vanished without a trace. It feels like this neighborhood has been forgotten by the world. I deeply regret not buying a radio. Now I'm completely cut off from outside news. The oppressive atmosphere became unbearable, so I cut my reconnaissance short and teleported back to my safe space, deciding to take the day off. The moment I returned to my sanctuary, the weight lifted from my chest, lounging lazily on the couch, tucked under a blanket with my feet in the foot warmer, pure bliss. Feeling completely safe in this cozy space, I soon drifted off to sleep. The two furballs were carefree as can be. They dashed straight to the patio upon entering, chasing after the chicks and bunnies. Mia waited until I woke up before bringing her little ball, begging me to play with her. Meanwhile, Buddy got hungry and started tugging at my sleeve, leading me to his food bowl. Absolutely adorable. All the negative effects from my solo reconnaissance mission instantly melted away. The 6th month of the apocalypse. Today is New Year's Eve, a time for family reunions. What used to be a lively and heartwarming occasion now feels unbearably bleak and desolate. I thought this day would be just like any other. To our surprise, the long-absent helicopter arrived with supplies. Crate after crate of supplies were airdropped. Faintly, we could hear, "Hold on, everyone, hope is coming. The day will come when we meet again under the sun. Happy New Year." I felt a stirring in my heart. Our country never abandoned us after all. His voice abruptly cut off. There are still people fighting hard for our beautiful reunion in the future. The helicopter came in haste and left just as quickly. I stared intently at that pile of supplies. I longed to see a figure appear, to know I wasn't alone here. Finally, a window creaked open, a trash bag came flying down, then another, and another. A slight figure emerged from the neighboring building, swiftly gathering supplies before retreating. After a brief pause, garbage bags started raining down from the opposite direction. With the zombies lured away, two people hastily grabbed armfuls of supplies and bolted in the opposite direction. Once, twice, 3 times, supplies were running dangerously low. No internet, no communication. Even those who might have been at each other's throats in the group chat were now covering for one another in silent understanding. The pace gradually slowed as the last remaining supplies lay untouched on the ground. When my gaze inadvertently followed their line of sight to that building, I raised my binoculars. Sure enough, on one of the floors, a window stood ajar. 2 children stared anxiously at the pile of supplies. The wind had chapped their gaunt cheeks crimson. My rational mind told me to stay hidden, unseen by anyone, yet my body moved as if possessed, hauling bag after bag of long-accumulated trash to the windowsill. My hand pressed against the window as I took a deep breath, steeling my resolve. With a firm push, the long-sealed window swung open effortlessly. A frigid gust burst through the window, carrying snowflakes that sent shivers down my spine. I spent what felt like ages tossing garbage bags out the window, too afraid to look down or pause. After disposing all the trash, I turned to the supplies only to find the space completely empty. I immediately looked toward the building in the distance. The boy beamed with joy. Surrounded by piles of supplies. 11. The girl waved at me cheerfully. The biting wind lashed at my face as I thought I heard a girl's voice. "Thank you, sister, thank you." I hastily shut the window in a fluster. I recognized that little girl. She's the guardian angel for stray cats in our neighborhood. Her once round face is now gaunt as if chiseled by a knife. I wonder how that kind-hearted grandmother by her side is doing. The 7th month of the apocalypse. The number of zombies in the neighborhood has significantly decreased lately. Seemingly moving with purpose toward a certain direction, only a scattered dozen or so zombies remain, aimlessly shuffling about. Many seize this opportunity to bring back substantial supplies. It seems things are looking up, until 24 strangers entered the neighborhood. They were dressed head to toe, many wearing makeshift metal armor, axes, machetes, batons, even hunting rifles, moving with lethal coordination. They cleared the surrounding zombies in mere moments, without a word. They entered the apartment building nearest to the residential complex's main gate. My gut told me these weren't ordinary people. I hid behind the curtains, binoculars glued to the unfolding scene. Sure enough, they began kicking down doors one by one, looting supplies. They didn't stop until sunset. By then half the apartment building had been ransacked. I couldn't see anything beyond that. I've got a bad feeling about this. We might be heading into a major battle soon. Thankfully, I live on the top floor. It should take them a while to reach me. After confirming it was completely safe outside, I opened the door again. The hallway was pitch black, but I didn't dare turn on my flashlight. I pulled out the night vision goggles from my storage and scattered hundreds of thumbtacks across the stairwell like they were free. Over 2 days, many residents in the neighborhood banded together to resist. But after 2 gunshots took down their leaders, everyone backed down in fear. They traced it to my building soon enough. Thankfully, it was getting dark. Our first line of defense might just work. Through the door, I heard the sound of laughter and playful banter echoing in the hallway. They're coming any second now. Pressed against the door, I listened to the noises outside. Phew, bro. Finally the last floor. That climb nearly killed me. Damn right. Every time it's a high floor they call us to. Screw that. They really think we're pushovers. Yeah, the voices grew closer. Bro, what's wrong? Ouch, ouch, ouch. Damn it. It's an ambush. A rapid metallic clanging sounded before the door was violently kicked in. Without hesitation, I yanked on the power switch. The screams trailed off into weak whimpers, leaving only pained moans. The other guy ran off, probably to get reinforcements. I swung the door open and stared coldly at the writhing figure on the ground, drew my bow and took the headshot. These bastards had 2 shotguns between them. In a straight fight, my bow wouldn't stand a chance, and they'd bust through that door eventually. In that case, take the initiative and strike first. With night vision goggles on and athletic wear, everything around me became crystal clear. Under the cover of darkness, I concealed myself in the shadowy utility room between stairwells. This is the only passage leading to the rooftop. Someone arrived shortly. A dozen shadowy figures ascended by the dim light of their leader's single candle. 2 of them were carrying firearms. I trailed behind the last man. A cold blade flashed as I slit his throat. I clamped my hand over his mouth to muffle any sound that might alert others. Using the same method, I took out another one. It wasn't until the 3rd man that they realized something was wrong. This black outfit is my ultimate camouflage. I ducked into the shadowy stairwell and opened fire on the panicked crowd. 12, thwip, thwip, fired a volley and retreated without hesitation. Bang bang. The spot I'd just vacated got lit up by gunfire. I climbed up the fire escape and quietly crept up behind them. The gunman's figure suddenly loomed large before me, sensing something. He turned around only to see a dark shadow. Whoosh, thud, blood splattered everywhere. Behind you. Behind you, the crowd scattered, but to my eyes, they were just moving targets. This might be the most sinful day of my life. I broke the last man's leg. Watching him limp back to their den, I smirked. Go on, hurry back, hope you'll like this gift. Quickly returned to my house, locked the door, and changed out of the blood-stained ninja suit. I picked up the binoculars and scanned the apartment building across the street. Just as expected, the bait successfully drew out the remaining targets. The moment was ripe, so I pressed the button. What a fine day it is. Jubilant music erupted through the air, shattering the city's deathly silence. The sudden blast of music left the people downstairs stunned. What the hell? What's going on? Damn mutt, you're gonna get us killed. Shut it off now, boss. The button's jammed. We can't turn it off. Fuck him. Smash it. Just smash the damn thing. The portable speaker was quickly destroyed, cutting off the blaring music abruptly. But all that greeted them was a horde of zombies doubling back toward the noise. The commotion downstairs was lively enough, if you could call the bloodbath a scene of activity. 1 year and 5 months into the apocalypse, the supply convoy arrived again. Only this time it came in armored vehicles. Soldiers in uniform moved with practiced coordination, each shot finding its mark in the heads of the swarming zombies. Brains splattered everywhere, reeking of putrid decay. The soldiers piled up the zombies haphazardly, then raised a banner facing the apartment complex. The government has established safe zones. Come with us to safety. These words shone like a beacon of hope for the survivors. The long wait finally gave way to hope. People supported each other as they emerged from the shadows into sunlight. Basking freely in the warmth of the sun, I saw many familiar faces. The little angel girl and her brother were helping their grandmother. Auntie Yang and Uncle Zhang selling jianbing at the neighborhood entrance, little skateboarder Guigua and his mom, that low-key couple I've been shipping for ages. The soldiers went door to door, knocking on each apartment to ensure no one was left behind. Should I go? I asked myself. Should I walk with them in the sunlight, or stay guarding this house? I guess I'm just being selfish. I gathered various seats from the storage and packed them all into a bag. Then I opened the door and tossed the bag outside. After a moment's thought, I turned back and slipped a note inside, then returned to the space station to have dinner with the little rascals. No matter what, living here means Buddy Mia and I will always be safe. With so many people at the safe base, I can't guarantee this secret won't be discovered someday. I can't take any chances. In the stairwell, a soldier was panting as he knocked door to door to ensure no one was left behind. When he reached the 28th floor, he was startled to find a bag placed outside a resident's door. The bag was completely dust-free. To his surprise, it was packed with vegetable seeds. God knows how scarce vegetable supplies were at their base. Just as he raised his hand to knock in gratitude, a note caught his eye. He unfolded it to find elegant handwriting. 13. Hello, if the outside world ever becomes completely safe, would you come knock 9 times at my door? After feasting to my heart's content in the space and playing an extended game of chase with Buddy Mia, I finally emerged satisfied. By then, the soldiers and gathered residents had all left the neighborhood. The few who chose to stay received enough supplies to last them quite a while if rationed carefully. I cautiously opened the door to find the bag by the entrance had indeed vanished. A note slipped through the door crack and fluttered down by my feet. I bent down to pick it up. Written in shaky but deliberate strokes, it says, "Okay V the apocalypse. Who knows how long it's been, other than spending extra time peering out the window and observing. My days are mostly about letting Buddy and Mia out to play. Otherwise, I'm tending to the vegetable patch and feeding the animals in the space." Life was peaceful and comfortable that day. I was showering my little one with kisses on the couch when sudden footsteps outside startled me. I quickly stashed the 2 furballs back into my space and armed myself with a compound bow. Cautiously approaching the door, I listened intently for any movement outside. The footsteps outside stopped, and I heard heavy breathing. Then, thud, the door was gently knocked. Knock, 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 knock. Exactly 9 knocks in total. I stared blankly out the window as sunlight streamed in. Story 2. After inheriting the fortune. I burned myself 100 trillion hell banknotes. My aunt's family failed to scam me out of money and called me a lunatic, yet only I knew that 1 month later, the gates between the human world and the underworld would open, the existing monetary system collapsed overnight, and hell banknotes became the universal currency. In my past life, I was tortured and killed by my aunt's family for money. In this life, with trillions of hell banknotes at my disposal, I remained spotless while watching them turn on each other. I died. 3 days ago, I spent my last hell banknote to save my aunt's family. After my parents passed away, I treated my aunt's family as my only relatives, yet, they brutally tortured and killed me for a mere 100 hell banknotes. A month ago, the gates between the human world and the underworld were opened, and ferocious ghosts overnight took over the human realm. The old monetary system collapsed, and only hell banknotes could be exchanged for supplies. But why would normal people burn paper money for themselves while still alive? So the fierce ghost opened a bank where you could exchange body parts for underworld currency. After rescuing my aunt's family, they unceremoniously took over my house. Upon learning I was already bankrupt, they even set their sights on me. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself tightly bound by them, to keep the parts fresh. They dismembered me for a full day and night. The torment only ended when my head was finally severed. I died filled with hatred, never expecting heaven would grant me a second chance. Checking my phone, I see the apocalypse arrives in 1 month. I had just inherited the fortune at this time. My usually indifferent aunt suddenly clung to me like a parasite. In my past life, I couldn't see people's true intentions and actually treated them as my only family. However, having experienced the cruel apocalypse, I had long seen through their hypocritical nature. Seeing their hypocritical concern, I could only feel nauseated, but thinking of the impending apocalypse, I suppressed the resentment in my heart. The most important thing now is to hoard spirit money. As for these parasites, I want to see what fate awaits them in this lifetime without my desperate efforts to save them, too. After my parents passed away, they left me an inheritance of 3 million. It won't be long before this money turns into worthless scraps of paper. I must hurry and exchange it all for spirit money before the apocalypse comes. After all, only the hell money burned before the apocalypse can be used after it. Opening the shopping app, bundles of hell money printed with the Bank of Heaven and Earth cost just 1 yuan each. Incredibly cheap. However, looking at the denominations, I found myself in a dilemma. After the apocalypse, the highest denomination of hell money in circulation is only 100. In my past life, I personally witnessed someone flaunting wealth with $1 million hell note. The next second, they were torn apart on the street by a fierce ghost checking the money. I sent the purchase requirements and amounts to different merchants one by one. Some customer service representatives replied that they couldn't accept the order, but more often they took me for a scammer. After all, no normal person would buy 3 million in hell banknotes at once, and only in 100 denomination bills. It wasn't until midnight that a customer service representative finally took the order. Only the inventory was insufficient, and making new ones would take time. Can you be ready within 30 days? After a long silence from the other side, the reply finally came, yes. But our family's spirit money costs 3 yuan per bundle, with 100 sheets per bundle, though slightly pricey. The quality is guaranteed, I gasped, feeling a sharp pang of distress. This is 3 times more expensive than other stores, but time was pressing, leaving me no room to choose carefully. I gritted my teeth and paid 30% of the deposit in one go. Then I contacted the incineration plant and had the boss deliver the goods directly there. Seeing how readily I paid, the boss beamed with delight and repeatedly promised to deliver quality work. With the boss's assurance, my anxious heart finally settled. Just as I finished dealing with the spirit money issue, my phone rang urgently like a death knell. Opening it, sure enough, it was Auntie. As soon as the call connected, my aunt started playing the emotional card. With your parents gone, we're family now, I scoffed, feeling a wave of disgust. Seeing she was about to exploit my parents' memory again, I coldly cut her off. Speak quickly if you have something to say. I want to sleep. There was a pause on the other end of the line, followed by faint muttering. After a long silence, she finally spoke resentfully. Your cousin is getting married soon, but the housing situation still hasn't been settled. I sneered inwardly. The scene was all too familiar. In my past life, as soon as my aunt learned I inherited the estate, she immediately called to borrow money. At that time, I was still immersed in the grief of losing my parents. Hearing my aunt sell her emotions, I really thought she treated me as family. I tried so hard to be good to them, but what did I get in the end? Taking my parents' inheritance wasn't enough for them. They even wanted to use my house as my cousin's wedding home. If the apocalypse hadn't suddenly arrived, I might have already been kicked out, and when the apocalypse came, they brutally dismembered me for just 100 hell coins. Thinking of this, I suppressed my anger and interrupted my aunt. I don't have money. My aunt immediately raised her voice. How could you possibly have no money? Your father left you 3 million. What does a young girl like you need so much money for? Celeste, we're family. How can you be so cold? Is this how your parents taught you to behave? Seeing her dare to mention my parents, I shouted angrily, apparently frightened by me. Auntie stayed silent for a long while. I sneered at my phone. I spent all the money on joss paper, believe it or not. After saying that, I immediately hung up the phone. 3. At dawn the next day, my aunt's family was already blocking the doorway. I deliberately left them waiting outside. Only when they were sweating from the heat did I leisurely let them in. My cousin rolled her eyes the moment she saw me. Then, as if entering her own home, she flopped onto the sofa and scolded me. Are you deaf? You didn't even hear such loud knocking. Hurry up and get me some water to drink. I picked up the cold tea nearby and splashed it directly onto her face. My cousin let out a scream and sprang to her feet in one swift motion. I slapped away her hand that was pointing at me. If you keep shouting in my house again, what pours on you next will be boiling water. No matter how domineering my cousin is, she's still someone who lived in peaceful times. Facing me who survived the ruthless apocalypse, she immediately retreated behind my aunt in tears. My uncle was so angry that veins bulged on his temples. What kind of parents would raise such an ill-mannered thing like you? Since your parents are dead, I'll properly educate you in their place today. I shot a cold glare at them. In my past life, it was him who hacked off my limbs one slash at a time. The seething resentment became palpable, freezing uncle in his tracks with fright. Seeing this, Aunt immediately rushed out with a forced smile. Don't be angry, Celeste. Your uncle just spoke hastily because he's afraid you might be deceived. Tell Aunt the truth. Where did those 3 million really go? I threw the transaction order right in front of her. My aunt took one look and nearly fainted with her eyes rolling back. My cousin was so frantic she started jumping up and down, calling me a lunatic on the spot. But when she saw me walking toward her with a teapot, she immediately covered her mouth in fear, tears welling up in her eyes. Coward, seeing the family's ashen faces. I sneered inwardly. The money belongs to my parents. So it's only right that I use it to buy joss paper to honor them anyway. I've spent all the money my parents left me, and only this old house remains. And suddenly sat up, her eyes gleaming. I knew she had taken the bait, so I leisurely went to the kitchen to boil water and make tea, for occasional cries and commotion could be heard from the living room. Cousin was rolling on the floor, complaining that Auntie was too slow to act, letting the 3 million slip away. There's still this apartment. It's in a school district. It'll definitely appreciate in a couple of years. Don't worry, sweetie. Mom will definitely get it for you. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Just when I was worried about not being able to sell the house, my aunt's family took the bait. When the apocalypse comes, all houses will be occupied by fierce ghosts. Humans who want shelter will have to pay with spirit money to rent from the ghosts. My house was taken over by fierce ghosts just days after the apocalypse began. At that time, I spent most of my spirit money and paid the price of an arm to escape from the house. After discussing for a long time, my aunt's family indeed brought up the matter of buying a house. 1.2 million, not a penny less. My aunt's face immediately froze. She forced a smile. Celeste, how about 800,000, 2 million? We really can't come up with that amount. I knew perfectly well they could definitely scrape together 2 million. They'd just have to patch it together from various sources, maybe even sell the family's old house. But what does this have to do with me? My face turned cold as I yanked the door open. If you don't want it, then leave. The market price for this house starts at 1 million. If you don't want it, there are plenty of people lining up to buy it. Auntie certainly knew that 2 million was them getting a bargain. Hearing me say this, they immediately panicked and repeatedly promised to gather the money as soon as possible, at most 1 week. After 1 week I'll go find an agent, and if someone else gets the better deal then don't blame me. Auntie clenched her teeth tightly, suppressing her anger as she walked out the door. It wasn't until I closed the door that I started cursing loudly at the house. On the evening of the 6th day, Auntie stood at my doorstep with a dark expression. Compared to 6 days ago, she looked much more haggard. Even the gold bracelet she always wore on her hand and proudly showed off in her daily social media posts was gone. I knew she had invested a fortune. The house was handed over upon payment. Aunt's family held the property deed, their faces beaming with joy. My cousin looked down on me with arrogance. This is my house now. Get out immediately. Memories of being tormented day and night by the fierce ghost in the house resurfaced in my mind. I let out a cold laugh at my aunt's family. I can't wait to see the expressions on their faces when the apocalypse comes and they realize what they've sacrificed everything for is a flesh-eating demon. 5. With the 2 million I just received, I contacted the funeral money vendor again. The vendor accepted the order and even generously threw in some other funeral supplies. My hands paused mid-action. In my past life, I was dirt poor and could only afford the cheapest rented house. As for those towering buildings, I didn't even dare to dream about them. With my boss's reminder, I suddenly had an epiphany. If paper money can be burned, then paper houses and paper effigies should also be registered under my name. Just thinking about it made me so excited I couldn't sleep, after all. No matter how much money you have, it can still run out. Only real estate like houses can continuously generate wealth. As for paper effigies, if they could also be utilized by me, it would provide an additional layer of survival security in the apocalypse. I immediately sent a message to the boss, 1,200,000, make another 200,000 in spirit money, and use the rest to produce other funeral items. The more varieties the better. Immediately after, I sent the special requests to the boss. Besides the usual paper houses, I also want a batch in high-rise building styles. The paper figures don't require quantity. The more exquisite they are, the better. The boss slowly sent me a question mark. Just as I was racking my brains to justify my actions, the boss stopped asking further. In our line of work, we all know what can be asked and what cannot. The items you want need to be custom-made by the master craftsman. We'll need to discuss both price and quantity. Seeing he didn't press further, I breathed a sigh of relief, but it also brought me back to sober reality from my initial euphoria. You decide how to allocate the money. In short, everything must be burned within the stipulated time. The boss agreed to each request one by one. For the remaining time, I randomly checked into a hotel to stay. The spirit money and other funeral items were delivered to the incineration plant in batches, and the last bits will be burned today. I settled the final payment with my boss. After repeatedly hinting to my boss to prepare more hell money for me, I deactivated the phone number I used to contact him. Today is the last day of the peaceful era. Lying in bed, I couldn't fall asleep no matter what, fearing that something might go wrong and I'd repeat the tragedy of my past life, until the clock hand past midnight. The familiar red light outside the window instantly illuminated the entire land. The distant sky seemed torn open, with dark shadows pouring out from the rift. Instantly, the places where the fierce ghosts passed were filled with shrill screams. I clutched the corner of the table desperately, my heart pounding wildly. The apocalypse has come. At the same time, a chill ran through my wrist. Looking down, I saw a bracelet firmly clasped around my wrist. A ding sound rang in my ears. Immediately after, crimson words rose before my eyes. Esteemed VIP, welcome to Heaven and Earth Bank. In light of your substantial assets deposited with us, we are pleased to offer you exclusive services. All the previously burned spirit money had been credited to my account. The screen flashed as the system began tallying up the properties, shops, and vehicles under my name. The joy of sudden wealth instantly dispelled my fear of the apocalypse. I couldn't help but roll around on the bed in excitement. A ghost drifted through the hotel door and floated eerily before me. Sensing the presence of a living being, it immediately bared its fangs and lunged at me with a ferocious expression. With a mere thought, a stack of cash materialized in my hand out of thin air. With a flick of my wrist, $100 bills scattered across the floor. The fierce ghost that had been snarling just a second ago froze in place, its face filled with disbelief. From now on, you are my back-pounding ghost. The fierce ghost seemed to feel insulted and rushed at me in a rage. I took out 2 bundles of cash and threw them in front of it. It paused in surprise, then suddenly knelt down before me with a thud. This old servant has arrived. This old servant has arrived. Just as I was enjoying the fawning service of the back-pounding ghost, my phone started ringing like crazy. Seeing it was my aunt, a cold glint flashed through my eyes. I've let her discuss me in my phone for so many days, just to witness today's grand spectacle. The moment the call connected, a piercing wail came through the phone. Celeste, what did you put in my house? Get it out now. I spoke unhurriedly. Auntie, you were the one who wanted to buy the house, and you already changed the locks. What does this have to do with me now that something's happened? My aunt's family was shouting curses from across the street. But under the torment of the fierce ghost, it didn't take long before they changed their tune and begged me for help. I'd heard enough of their screams, so I decisively hung up the phone. What's the hurry? I endured this ghost's torment for several days back then. 6. After hanging up the phone, the back-scratching ghost was still grinning obsequiously. The ghost that barged in, seeing its spineless demeanor, couldn't help but want to execute it on the spot. However, after being struck by my brick of cash, they all immediately changed their expressions. Thus, a bizarre scene unfolded in my hotel room. Ghosts of all kinds lined up to pitch themselves to me. Soon the entire hotel was completely surrounded. I couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Money really can make the devil turn the millstones. Just as the fierce ghosts were fighting tooth and nail for a position, several white figures suddenly appeared at the hotel entrance, as several beams of white light flashed. The fierce ghosts let out shrill screams and scattered in all directions. Several figures darted in front of me in an instant. Before I could react, they immediately lined up and bowed to me. I took a closer look and breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out to be the paper effigy I had burned earlier. Never expected they could truly appear in the apocalypse, transforming into an astonishingly powerful bodyguard squad. The most exquisitely dressed paper effigy stepped forward to face me. Suddenly, An electronic screen materialized before it. All my properties are listed here, displayed before me in the form of a map. A piece of land suddenly appeared in the northernmost part of the city. In front lies a bustling commercial street, while behind stands an orderly cluster of villas. Among the villa cluster, an exquisite courtyard house stands out most prominently, surrounded by my bodyguard entourage. I got into the car and drowsily headed towards North City. Upon stepping into North City's territory, I found not a single soul in sight. Only paper effigies were maintaining the city's order with meticulous discipline. As my vehicle passed by, they paused their tasks and bowed reverently in my direction. It was only through the paper figurine's introduction that I learned this area of North City appeared simultaneously with the apocalypse. At first, all kinds of fierce ghosts coveted this land, fighting fiercely over ownership rights. But soon, after the first wave of attacking ghosts were completely annihilated, no spirits dared to covet this territory again. The fierce ghosts speculated endlessly about who the true master of this land might be, but no matter how curious they were, they dared not approach this place lightly. Now, this land could well be called humanity's last paradise. After briefly learning about the situation in North City, the car stopped right in front of the courtyard house. I stood in the courtyard, taking a long time to come back to my senses. In this life, I finally have a home of my own. No more worrying about ghosts suddenly breaking in to chop off my limbs as rent payment. Remembering my aunt's family, I turned on the security camera I'd installed earlier. 7. Right now, my aunt's family is trembling and huddled in a corner of the living room. And above their heads was the fierce ghost that had occupied my house in a past life. The fierce ghost gazed greedily at the family, as if calculating who to devour first. A drop of drool fell onto my cousin's face. My cousin's face stiffened, and she couldn't help but scream, "You monster, get away from me." Drop dead. The vengeful aura around the fierce ghost grew denser, its bulging eyes fixed intently on my cousin. My aunt slapped my cousin twice in quick succession. "Shut your mouth." My cousin was beaten until the corner of her mouth split open, holding back tears as she covered her mouth in terror. My aunt looked obsequiously at the fierce ghost. "We don't want the house anymore. We'll leave right away. But this is my wedding home." The cousin unwillingly grabbed the aunt. After being glared at fiercely by the aunt, she shut her mouth with a face as pale as death. Watching the family cautiously inching toward the door, I couldn't help but snicker, trying to leave. It's not that easy. Just as Auntie was eagerly grasping the doorknob with hopeful eyes, a spray of blood splashed across her face. Auntie stared blankly downward. Her 4 fingers had been cleanly severed and were now dangling from the doorknob. She finally realized what was happening, let out a blood-curdling scream, foamed at the mouth, and collapsed backward. My cousin turned pale with fright, shrieking as she scrambled away. Uncle was leaning against the cabinet, vomiting violently until the world spun. For a moment, no one attended to Aunt lying on the ground convulsing. The ferocious ghost lolled its long tongue, eerily repeating, "Money, give me money." Only then did my cousin snap out of it, pulling out all the valuables she had on her. "Take it all. Please spare us." But these treasures she held dear were worthless in the ghost's eyes. The fierce ghost kept repeating, "Give me spirit money," advancing step by step. Where would my cousin have such a thing on her? She collapsed to the ground, weeping bitterly. "No spirit money. Then use a living person to pay the debt. Who among you is willing to stay?" 8. The aunt's family huddled together, pleading desperately. No one was willing to go to their death. The fierce ghost's patience had long run out. In a flash of red light, the uncle who was still embracing his weeping aunt found his arm falling to the ground. The aunt and cousin screamed and dodged away. The aunt even kicked away his hand reaching for help. "Husband, the child is still young and can't be without my care. I've wronged you. I'll burn more paper money for you in the future." A trace of despair appeared on the ferocious face of the uncle. Struggling to prop himself up with his broken arm, he fiercely grabbed the aunt by the neck. Only when the aunt choked and rolled her eyes did the terrified cousin, who had been scared out of her wits nearby, finally snap out of it. "He stays. We choose him." Uncle still wanted to resist, but the fierce ghost gave him no more chances. Watching the fierce ghost drag the limp uncle into the darkness, aunt and cousin clung to each other, wailing as if reborn from disaster. Supporting her aunt, the cousin helped her stand up, and the two quickly headed for the door. "It's all your father's fault for being useless. If he could earn money, would we have bought this unlucky house? He deserved to die. From now on, Mom will protect you. Is that so?" Watching my aunt speak with such conviction, I forced a smile. The door opens. The mother and daughter, seeing the scene outside, felt their hopeful expressions fade away one by one. The outside had long been occupied by fierce ghosts. At this moment, they were staring intently at Auntie's severed hand. To starving ghosts who have endured centuries of hunger, the scent of human blood holds an irresistible temptation. Driven by maternal instinct, Auntie desperately shielded my cousin with her own body, thus she missed the fleeting glimpse of venomous malice on my cousin's face. Auntie continued pleading desperately for the ferocious ghost to spare them both. "Mom, didn't you say you'd protect me?" My aunt froze for a moment, as if remembering something, then turned around in disbelief, but the next second, my cousin shoved her out. "Mom, I know you love me most. Since your hand is broken and you can't leave anyway, why not let me go out instead? The aunt clung tightly to her cousin's skirt, refusing to let go. It wasn't until her cousin stepped on the broken hand that she cried out in pain and finally released her grip. She was pinned beneath layers of ferocious ghosts, being devoured alive. My cousin took one glance and rushed out without looking back. In the end, the fierce ghosts dismembered and devoured her. Aunt stared wide-eyed at the direction my cousin fled, two trails of bloody tears streaming from her eyes. She refused to believe her beloved daughter would abandon her, holding on until the very last moment. But until the last fierce ghost left satiated, she still didn't see her cousin turn back. I watched my aunt's expression. I wonder if she could comprehend the despair I felt when being dismembered piece by piece in my past life. 9. I couldn't care less where my cousin fled to. She has always been lazy and gluttonous. Without her aunt, she might struggle to even survive. I've devoted my entire body and soul to the construction of North City. After observing these past few days, I've noticed that the paper figures only work and move in specific areas, never setting foot in this villa district. Surprisingly, I'm the only one living in the entire villa area, with all the other spaces left unused. I don't want to see such a good house go to waste like this. After much deliberation, the next day I posted a rental notice outside the northern city. The news spread quickly. The northern city villa district is now available for rent, tenants limited to humans only. This undoubtedly caused a huge uproar among the struggling human factions. There actually exists a human faction capable of resisting the fierce ghosts. For a time, the North City's outer gate was packed with people coming to seek refuge. I sent paper effigies to maintain order outside. Many fierce ghosts were drawn to the living, but after witnessing the paper effigy's formidable power, none dared to act rashly, only pacing anxiously at the periphery. I stood on the wall observing those who came seeking refuge. Most faces bore expressions of fear and helplessness in the face of the apocalypse. Suddenly, a small team in the corner caught my attention, though covered in dust and grime. Their eyes still flickered with the flame of survival, compared to other survivors. Their lives appeared somewhat more comfortable. Those who passed the review rushed into the North City with excited faces. As I looked at the smiles on their faces, an indescribable emotion welled up in my heart. The team was quickly approved. Suppressing my emotions, I walked up to them. The leader was a hooded girl. She placed a stack of spirit money in front of me. "We're a ghost hunting team, seeking your protection." I was startled inwardly after seeing the amount of spirit money before me. I couldn't help but purse my lips. Daring to call yourself ghost hunter and casually producing so many spirit coins. This is no ordinary person. A talisman materialized in the girl's palm. As the talisman burned, the eerie ghostly aura surrounding them momentarily vanished. I'm a talisman master. After the apocalypse began, I formed a team with my fellow disciples. That's how we made it this far. She concisely recounted the team's achievements, including robbing the Phantom Bank and hunting ghosts, things I never dared imagine. I suspect these teams had been fighting since their past lives, but back then, I was struggling to survive and never had the chance to interact with them. Seeing me silent, the girl gradually slowed her speech and finally sighed. She bowed her head to apologize to me, then took the spirit money from the table and prepared to leave. At that moment, someone suddenly rushed up to me, ignoring the paper effigy's threat. They knelt directly before me. "Please take Evangeline in. I'm willing to give up my chance to enter the city." The girl frowned deeply and pulled the person up. "Taking us in means openly opposing the fierce ghosts. No one wants to get involved in this mess. The city lord has already saved many by opening the gates. Don't guilt-trip them." After being pulled up, the person still knelt stiffly straight. "Many of our lives were saved by Evangeline. If you're not going, I won't enter either." Witnessing this scene before me, I couldn't help but be deeply moved. In my past life during the apocalypse, I only encountered deception and violence. Never did I imagine such warmth could exist beneath the terror. Now, though I possess an entire city and endless wealth, I only think of self-preservation, never daring to imagine I could save humanity. After all, no matter how strong my paper guardian team is, they can't protect everyone. But upon seeing this squad, an unprecedented thought suddenly surged in my heart. If this talisman's power could be stronger and used by more people, wouldn't that mean humanity still has hope? Remembering the hopeful expressions on the faces of those entering the city, I stopped the departing girl. "Beijing welcomes your arrival." The girl stared blankly at the key in her hand, her eyes instantly reddening. 10. The girl's name is Evangeline. From her words, I learned that even before the apocalypse arrived, there were occasional wild ghosts roaming about, but back then, the ghosts didn't possess such formidable power. With their talisman mastery, they could repel the ghosts. Yet now, the apocalypse has arrived. While the ferocious ghosts' power surges, talisman masters have lost their material supply, greatly diminishing their strength. Before reaching North City, Evangeline's group had already lost more than half of their members. "Do you know any other talisman masters?" Evangeline let out a bitter laugh. talisman masters are scattered across the country, but with the apocalypse upon us, our lineage can barely protect ourselves, let alone have the energy to contact others. I understood clearly in my heart. That very night, paper effigies were sent to post the rental notices in more distant locations, with the announcement explicitly stating preferential treatment for those with specialized skills. Within a few days, the number of people seeking refuge in North City had doubled. Among them were not only individuals who held important professions before the apocalypse, but also a scattered few possessing the ability to exorcise spirits. I couldn't help but feel happy, but soon I couldn't laugh anymore. Though the northern city is large, its capacity is limited. In just a few days, most of the residences in the city were already occupied. I'm no longer content with merely surviving in this post-apocalyptic world. To restore humanity, we must further expand the northern city. The stacks of hell banknotes burned before the apocalypse finally came in handy. While ordering paper effigies to purchase land outside the northern city, I secretly acquired materials needed for talisman making. In just a few days, the northern city expanded its perimeter. The banished fierce ghosts harbored resentment, but cowed by the tyranny of money, none dared to voice their anger. As for Evangeline, with premium materials at hand, the potency of her talismans increased significantly, though everything was progressing favorably. But I know humanity's revival won't be that simple. That very night, I received a visitation notice from a fierce ghost leader. Evangeline feared it might harm me, so she worked through the night to create protective talismans for me to carry. Later, she even offered to meet the leader in my place. I refused, because the visit from the fierce ghost leader was actually part of my plan all along. 11. I just didn't expect there to be a minor incident on the day of the fierce ghost leader's visit. I arrived at the northern city gate early, wanting to secretly observe the strength of leader-level beings, but just then, a cup of hot tea was spilled on my dress. My face turned cold as I looked up. My cousin's face, unseen for so long, appeared before me. At this moment, she was heavily made up, leaning against a greasy man. Before I could speak, my cousin sneered. I didn't expect you to still be alive. Truly, the poor have tough lives, but you can only linger around the outer gates of North City. A place like this isn't for paupers like you. After speaking, she nestled into the man's embrace. The man leered at me with a lustful gaze, looking me up and down. Seeing this, my cousin immediately rolled her eyes. Although you're a shabby little wretch, you're barely presentable. If you kneel and kowtow to me and Raiden right now, Raiden might make an exception and take you in, show you around the villa district. Raiden sprawled arrogantly in front of me, lifting his head with disdain. I let out a cold laugh, watching them quietly. To this day, I am no longer the little girl who could be manipulated by my aunt's family. Under my cold gaze, Raiden's expression shifted slightly, and the disdain on his face lessened somewhat, but my cousin remained as tactless as ever. Flushed with the confidence of having found a powerful backer, she was eager to trample me into the dirt. Seeing that I showed no reaction to the mention of the Villa District, my cousin flew into a rage. No surprise you're a pauper, you've never even heard of the Villa District. Let me tell you, I'm moving in this afternoon. Someone like you could never set foot there in your lifetime. I looked at my cousin, the disdain in my eyes unconcealed. You can't possibly not know who owns North City, can you? A glint flashed in Raiden's eyes as he looked at me with increased frustration. He reached out to stop my cousin, but my cousin was too caught up in her triumphant moment to pay any attention to his attempt. What? You're not going to claim this place as yours, are you? In this city, you're not even fit to be a dog, let alone dream of becoming the city lord. These words happened to fall upon Evangeline's ears as she returned to report, with a wave of her hand. The scalding hot tea before me splashed onto my cousin's face. The cousin's face was contorted with pain from the burns, baring her teeth as she screamed curses at us. But the next second, Raiden slapped her to the ground with one strike. The cousin stared at Raiden in disbelief. How dare you hit me? You must have taken a fancy to this little hussy. Celeste, you're nothing but a vixen. Hearing my cousin speak my name, Raiden's face turned ashen. He turned and delivered a vicious kick to my cousin's chest. Shut your mouth. I pitied you when your parents abandoned you, so I took you in. Had I known it would come to this, I should have let you die among the ghosts. Abandoned by parents. I couldn't help but laugh out loud and stepped on my cousin's chest. You haven't forgotten how Aunt died, have you? My cousin's expression changed abruptly as she suddenly lunged to strangle me. But this is my territory. Before she could touch me, two paper figures flashed in front of me. My cousin stared blankly at her broken hand for a moment before letting out a wail. But this time, she didn't dare to curse me again. After all, everyone knows there's only one person who can make paper effigies serve. Raiden fawned as he approached me, handing over a card. Boss, this woman has nothing to do with me. Who knows what madness suddenly possessed her? This is my token of sincerity. I hope Beijing will take me in the apocalypse. Those who can obtain the Heaven and Earth Bank pass card must have at least tens of millions in savings. I didn't confiscate the card, just looked at him without any warmth in my gaze. Raiden, the one thing I'm never short of is money. I'll give you one last minute. If you don't leave now, you can stay here with her. Raiden's smile froze on his face. He wanted to say more, but after glancing at the paper effigy behind me, he finally turned away with an ashen expression. As he passed by my cousin, he shot her a vicious glare. Only then did my cousin snap out of her daze. You can't leave. You promised to take me into the city. We have money, don't we? Raiden cursed angrily, kicked her over, and strode away. My cousin fell to the ground and only after a long while crawled desperately toward me. I'm your sister. If you dare drive me away, I'll tell everyone outside the city how heartless you are. I pushed her away. She won't get another chance to leave the city. I ordered the paper effigy to lock her in the dungeon. It was pitch dark inside, with only a video recorder running. Since she's forgotten how her aunt died, I'll help her remember it clearly. 12. Just as all this was done, the fierce ghost leader arrived at the northern city gate. The defensive line that could block all minor ghosts had little effect on it. It only paused for a moment before continuing to approach the northern city. My heart grows colder by the moment. I could only secretly rejoice that I hadn't abused my wealth to act recklessly. Who knows how many fierce ghosts of this caliber exist, let alone those even more powerful that I've never encountered. The leader, filled with anger, exerted pressure at every turn. I smiled under the eerie ghostly aura. You've misunderstood. I'm just a merchant. I know exactly what should and shouldn't be done. The leader snorted coldly. Utterly unconvinced by my words, I continued speaking without pause. The recent rapid expansion was just due to cash flow problems. If you could lend me some underworld currency, then, the leader's expression softened slightly, but when I mentioned the amount of underworld currency I wanted to borrow, his face instantly darkened. In 1 year, I'll repay double the principal plus interest. The leader stared at me with a sinister gaze. Human, if you can't repay, I'll have you sliced into 1,000 pieces. Of course, if I can't repay, besides letting you do as you please with me, this city will also be yours. The leader pondered for a moment, snorted coldly, threw down a card, and vanished. I returned to the city contentedly with the money. In the following months, I used the same trick to swindle more money from other leaders. Not only did I repay the first leader's loan within a year, but I also had plenty of funds to make talismans for Evangeline. Other fierce ghost leaders, coveting the high interest rates, never refused to lend me money, so by robbing Peter to pay Paul, I bought Beijing a lot of time for development. But the interest had already reached a point where I couldn't afford to pay it back, staring at the multiple zeros in the debt amount. Evangeline couldn't help but sigh. I smiled and comforted her. I currently hold most of the liquid assets in the underworld, so those leaders wouldn't dare touch me. After all, according to Underworld Bank's rules, if I die, all my assets automatically vanish. They wouldn't get a single coin. Driven by greed, if I borrow from the next leader, they'd even take out loans themselves just to lend to me. Every ghost is gambling, betting that this time bomb won't explode in their hands. This way they can effortlessly double their funds while lounging at home. The old me might have still feared their retaliation, but now the influence of North City keeps expanding, with more and more talented individuals coming to join. Evangeline and her team incorporated various school strengths to improve the talismans, even burying a massive spell array beneath North City. At this time, I had just inherited the fortune, fearing the power of the Northern City. The fierce ghosts no longer dared to act as brazenly as before in the human world. Humans and ghosts coexisted peacefully for several more years. Finally, one day, all the fierce ghosts returned to the underworld one after another. Turns out the underworld's funds couldn't withstand my reckless spending anymore, so they gritted their teeth and left in anger. After over a decade of darkness, humanity finally welcomed the light. The surviving humans flocked to North City. Expanding outward from this central hub, perhaps before long, this place will regain its pre-apocalyptic prosperity. On the day the fierce ghosts withdrew, I suddenly remembered there was still one person locked in the dungeon. The fierce ghost harbored resentment toward me but dared not attack me directly, so it directed all its fury at my cousin instead, having received the news in advance. I deliberately reduced the guards, allowing the fierce ghost to enter the prison with ease. The night before sending my cousin away, I met her for the last time. At this moment, she wasn't yelling at me like before, just staring at me with a sinister look in her eyes. You knew everything all along, didn't you? You colluded with that vicious ghost to kill my parents, didn't you? I thought she might have guessed that I was a reincarnator. Never expected her imagination to run so wild. But so what? No one would argue with a dead person. I slowly leaned close to her ear, watching her pupils dilate wider and wider. Guess